Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dibular, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Nice crowd in here to start things off. Up over 500 in the YouTube chat. A little over 300 filing in on Rumble. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here today. This is a big news day. Big news day. We have so much to talk about
today. A lot
today.
going on, man.
So much to talk about. We don't even have time to talk about Sydney Sweeney's pussy today. That's kind of crazy how that got forced out of the rotation. Yeah,
we dropped that.
We were like, we just can't justify it. Sorry. No insult to her. No insult to her. We don't want to insult any of the Sydney Sweeney stands in the audience, but there's just no time.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's no time for the Regina
Spector thing. Hardly a day that
either.
goes by that we don't get tagged in X.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, it tells us everything we need to know about you guys that you won't have Sydney Sweeney on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. We're not talking about Regina Spector either. Regina Spector got shouted down by pro-Palestine protests. I didn't realize she was such a fanatical Israel supporter. That's kind of upsetting. Between her and Radiohead, I kind of like... Radiohead, I like half of their stuff. Half of it is a little too abstract for me, honestly. But, Spectre is good, but, yeah, it's too bad. That's unfortunate. Oh, well. Anyway, neither of those things are in the lineup today because we have a ton.
Or Natalie Portman dancing at some concert on stage.
What's that?
That I'm too old to get.
Natalie
Portman, yeah, some song the song is it's the name of a girl like Lisa or something, and she came on and danced as Lisa.
Oh, interesting.
That was trending yesterday. And I was like, I don't know who the singer is. I don't know what this song is. It's completely over my head.
Portman, Portman is Israeli, but she was
Israeli, but she declined an award from Israel.
Yeah, she declined an award from Israel, so she's not one of the super hardcore murderous ones, which is I guess the highest compliment you could pay her. I don't know anything. I don't know much about her beyond that, but anyway,
she's still trying to make up for the Phantom Menace.
That's right. But anyway, we have a ton of stuff to get to today, so please smash that like button. Please smash that subscribe button on YouTube, that follow button over on Rumble, and strap in. We got a big show for you all today. So we're going to start out with a follow-up on the Freedom Flotilla, which, of course, we promised. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition tweeted out overnight when he reached the Israeli prison, U.S. human rights defender Chris Smalls was physically assaulted by 7 uniformed individuals. They choked him and kicked him in the legs, leaving visible signs of violence on his neck and back. When his lawyer met with him, Chris was surrounded by 6 members of Israel's special police unit. This level of force was not used against any other abducted activists, and they are abducted. Was a breach of international law to detain them. We condemn this violence against Chris and demand accountability for the assault and discriminatory treatment he faced. So JB, our friend JB, tweets out Christian Smalls was the only black person on the flotilla, yet he was the one beaten. Zionists are racist and white supremacists. The IDF also trains the police here. So when we say we're all oppressed by the same forces, you see in real time why. Yes, very good point. We've always said at the core of this is racism. That is what really is at the core of all of this.
Ask the Ethiopian Jews to try to immigrate over there.
Exactly. And like, what could make it clearer than this? This is like, I feel like, a running theme of not only this show, but of the past few shows and probably several shows going into the future is that the Israelis have kind of given up on subtlety. They've really stopped trying to hide who they are at all. At this point, I guess they're just betting that, the ugliest people in the world will support them and everybody else can fuck themselves. That seems to be the bet that they're making. So, Representative Summer Lee tweeted out about this. Chris Smalls, a black American labor leader, was trying to feed Palestinians being starved in Gaza. The IDF detained and beat him for it. This assault must not go unnoticed, and he must be freed immediately. Israel must be held to account. Let aid through. End the genocide. Over in the UK, Andy Worthington, journalist, friend by association of the show. We would love to have him on sometime. Misty had him on her show a way back. Great journalist here, great anti-war human rights activist. Shameful but unsurprising, says Andy. Out of all the prisoners kidnapped from the Gaza aid ship Hondola, illegally boarded and seized in international waters, the racist Israelis have singled out Chris Smalls, a black man, for particularly brutal treatment. Jeremy Corbyn, Chris Smalls was beaten for trying to deliver baby formula to starving Palestinians. This disgraceful assault on the Freedom Flotilla is an attack on common human decency. Stop the genocide, end the siege, free Palestine. So one of the great things about doing this
and
little segment...
just before you go on, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, and to preempt the Zionists who say, we have so many Ethiopians in Israel, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, hang on. You got to take that down for me to add this. All right. Without their knowledge, they gave Ethiopian women in Israel contraceptive shots.
Right.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that specifically to Ethiopian women? What is it about Ethiopian Jews that made them not want more of them? Right. I wonder.
Of course. Yes. So obviously, just transparently racist ideology and a racist project. So one of the silver linings of doing this short segment at the top here, because this is more of an update on things, is that I was able to discover this site called Payday Report, which is a great independent website. I encourage you to check them out, paydayreport.com. It's always good to find sources for labor reporting, since it's very hard to find outlets that are like specifically focused on labor issues. So we will hopefully use them as a source pretty often moving forward. So check them out, paydayreport.com. They pointed out something that was kind of hidden in plain sight that I hadn't realized. But Chris Smalls' union president, Teamsters Sean O'Brien, silent on beating by IDF, goes on Vivek Ramaswamy's right-wing show instead. Now, actually, he hosted him on his show. He hosted Vivek Ramaswamy on his podcast. But they are correct, and that is something that I didn't really consider, which is that since the Amazon Labor Union joined as an affiliate with the Teamsters, you would think now that the president of the Teamsters might have something to say about one of his affiliate union leaders being abducted and beaten by the IDF. But they report here, good morning from Pittsburgh, where we are tracking a big story for the labor movement. Amazon Labor Union founder Chris Smalls was beaten after the IDF arrested him while trying to break the siege of Gaza with the Freedom Flotilla coalition. As a union, we are demanding the immediate release of Chris Smalls and all captured activists, said the 29,000-member California Faculty Association in a statement late Monday. We further call for an immediate end to the engineered famine and deliberate starving of the people of Gaza, labor complicity with genocide, and all U.S. military aid to Israel. Other unions are expected to denounce the beating and detention of Smalls by the IDF. Well, where are they? It's getting kind of late. However, his international union leader, Teamsters Union President Sean O'Brien, has stayed silent on the detention of Smalls, who founded the Amazon Labor Union, which is now an affiliate of the Teamsters. Instead, the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, took to social media to advertise his upcoming interview with fascist commentator Vivek Ramaswamy and his 3 million right-wing followers. That's right. This is last tweet on Sean O'Brien's feed. Talking Elon Musk, Doge, and more with Vivek Ramaswamy. New episode of Better Bad Ideas with Sean O'Brien is out July 30th. That's tomorrow. Be sure to tune in. Yeah, that's must-see TV, I'm sure, Sean. But yeah, doesn't it tell you something? That not only is Sean O'Brien silent, but we haven't really seen too many statements from big labor unions in support of Chris Smalls. Kind of a sorry state of union leadership, kind of a sorry statement on union leadership nowadays. But yeah, that is quite disgraceful. And where has Sean O'Brien really been this past year? I mean, since the convention, he's pretty much disappeared. He's pretty much gone silent. He went on Tucker's show, and that's about it. So pretty horrible not to even get a statement of support from, yes, the Teamsters president, being that the ALU is now an affiliated union under the Teamsters leadership. But obviously, just another example of Israel just going full mask off, singling out the only black activist on this boat and beating him, scarring him on the neck. Just absolutely horrible. We had the privilege of interviewing Chris a while back when no one knew who we were tiny, way back. Way before he even started the union. That was just when he got fired, about a year after he got fired. So I think they were starting to organize a drive, starting to organize those workers there. But yeah, just absolutely horrible. This is how you, if you are Israel, you just burn every available bridge. Right now, I mean, you have a clear example of racist discrimination. Add that to the list of communities who are now you are going to mobilize. You know, every time you do something like this, you broaden the sphere of people who hate your guts, right? I mean, that's what this does. And that's not to say that black people didn't hate Israel before. It's just when you commit an overt offense against a community, it activates a segment of the political space or a faction of the political space that wasn't told directly, hey, you know what? They're your enemy. It's clearly a white settler colonial project. It is rooted in a white supremacist Eurocentric ideology and a Jewish supremacist one. But even before it was Jewish supremacist, it was Eurocentric. It was white supremacist in its founding. And now you see them just grab Chris Smalls and beat him up. I mean, it's just horrible. And so, yes, we all need to do what we can to get all of these people released. I understand Jacob Berger has been released. And
from what I understand, he's home.
Okay,
what I understand,
so he's home already. All right. So we will keep everybody posted on this.
Yeah. With Sean O'Brien, that's a natural evolution of the union misleadership class. For decades, they've been selling out the unions to corrupt right-wing Democrats like Bill Clinton.
Right.
Where were they standing up against these trade deals? Oh, you know, a lot of our membership they didn't do shit. They'd organize rally for these politicians that were shipping their members' job overseas. Never took a stand against these Democrats. This is the next logical step. These leaders like to be close to power. All Donald Trump had to do was say, yeah, I like you guys. I like you guys. That gave him enough plausible deniability. And to be fair, and I'm sure the story is true, the story that Sean O'Brien gave about Kamala Harris basically reading him the riot act and telling him, I'll win with or without you. You know, it's not exactly the most charming bunch that would lead you to feel like you need to stay in their tent, especially given that they're not going to do shit for your members anyway. So why not go to the people who don't overtly spit in your face? But it's an older problem than Trump. This is just really taking the mask off. You got an administration gutting the NLRB that clearly doesn't want it to exist, and you have nothing to say about that.
Yeah.
Much less the Chris Smalls thing. Sean O'Brien is just a disgusting disgrace. It's just the next step in these union leaders running cover for power. He just switched which party he's doing that on behalf of.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing this shows you is just how indifferent, or I shouldn't say indifferent, that's the wrong word, how hostile to labor this country is, that the media has been largely indifferent to Chris Smalls being detained and beaten. I mean, this should have been front page everywhere, right? But they're not gonna report on it because they don't want people outraged at violence against the labor leader. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. On that front, it's more a labor thing than a race thing. From the Israelis' perspective, yeah, they are vile, racist monsters. I mean, that is what that project is.
They literally were caught sterilizing the Ethiopian women.
Exactly. ER Silva says, finally made it in time. Love the show. Thank you, ER Silva. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo says, Keaton, be careful about Augie playing football. Ha ha. Thank you, Michael Castillo. I see the rest of that. I don't know if I can read that on the air, but congrats on getting it past the YouTube Super Chat censors. Jolly Man Big Boy, thanks for the $5. Lost a friend of 22 years. He called me a Jew hater and a Nazi. Ironic, since he supports Nazis in Ukraine, and I voted for a Jewish woman for president. Well, that is...
there's a lot of that going around, man. There's a lot of that going around. I have friends I've known since high school that I am no longer speaking with because of these issues.
Yep. Hi, dirtbags. Happy Tuesday. Thanks, Hillary Hinton. How about those genociding genociders? Pretty ballsy, huh? Perhaps tarring and feathering needs to make a comeback. P.S. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Abiding says, 2 things recession-proof since time immemorial: show business and Rumble rants. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate that very much. All right, we're going to move right on along here. So let's continue on. So this is another segment that is sort of a follow-up to one of our main focuses of Sunday's show, which is, of course, the starvation in Gaza. And we noticed that just about everyone with a public presence and reputation to maintain was acknowledging the severity of the famine and expressing concern for the Palestinian people, even people like Barry Weiss, who has been completely hostile to the Palestinians her entire life, and then hack, bought, and paid for politicians like Hakeem Jeffries, Hillary Clinton. Just about everyone acknowledges the famine in Gaza, except for this man. Benjamin Netanyahu says to Christian leaders, no starvation in Gaza. That's right. At this point, Benjamin Netanyahu says there's no starvation in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday categorically rejected claims of starvation in the Gaza Strip, dismissing such reports as a bold-faced lie. I always thought it was bald-faced lie, but maybe he got that wrong too. Speaking at a Daystar TV conference in Jerusalem, hosted by Pastor Paula White, leader of the White House Faith Office, Netanyahu said there is no policy of starvation in Gaza. We'll get more to his quote in a minute because we have video. But just in case people don't know who this Paula White character is, this is evangelist Paula White. Here she is in November 2020 leading a prayer service trying to secure Trump's re-election. Today, Trump announced that she would lead a new White House faith office. So yes, here is Paula White. So this was the audience for his speech.
Victory, victory in the quarters of heaven, in the quarters of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa kata rite eke banda ata rike didi ashata.
Oh my God.
For angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus, from South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here.
I thought we don't want them coming here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I guess the angels can come here, just not the people.
I guess they don't get sent to CECOT, the angels?
No, the angels are welcome. Yeah, those are different times. Those are more innocent times in 2020s. Yeah, so that's the audience for this speech. But here he is courting Christians, and shout out to Gen X Girl who put this segment together for realizing not only is he denying famine, but he is trying to win over the hearts and minds of this Christian group, because obviously there's been some tension between the Christian community and the Israelis lately. Like I said, they're just alienating every single group you could possibly think of. So here's Benjamin Netanyahu. He tweeted this out himself. There is no starvation in Gaza, no policy of starvation in Gaza, and I assure you that we have a commitment to achieve our war goals. We will continue to fight till we achieve the release of our hostages and the destruction of Hamas's military and governing capabilities. They shall be there no more. So we are going to show part of that speech, but we're going to show a little bit leading into it, where, like I said, the point of this speech was to rally Christians to the defense of Israel.
Thank you, Paula. And thank you, ambassadors, and the many friends of Israel and the Christian world. Israel is now portrayed as the enemy of Christians, and the enemies of Christians are portrayed as the friends of the United States. Israel has a thriving Christian community, the only thriving Christian community in the broad radius of the Middle East, where Christians are not tolerated, they're cherished.
Okay, now we just did a whole segment on this a few shows back, so I will refer you to that to see how they actually treat Christians in Israel.
I mean, to be fair, Middle Eastern Christians love loogies.
Yeah, right.
So hawking one on them, it's not disrespectful the way it would be here.
Right.
So Israel, the guardian of Christianity in the Middle East, is presented on American television by purchased influencers. It's presented as the enemy of Christianity. What folly, what lies, what a travesty of truth. So one of the things we have fought now, a seven-front war, we have an eighth front, and that is the front and the battle for truth. And I can think of no one who can carry this battle alongside with us, no one who can do it better than you on this channel, than you, Paula, and our many Christian friends who must fight for our common values, who must stand up for the truth. And by standing up for the truth, you stand up with Israel, and you stand with the Jewish people against this abomination of falsehoods. We can win this war exactly as we win the seven-front war. And I thank you for your support. Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza. Otherwise, there would be no Gazans.
Okay. Now, obviously, we know that that is just an outright lie. And it's almost an insult to the audience to even put this on the screen, since it's so obvious to everybody. I mean, this is documented facts from a couple of months ago. This is Israel Katz tweeting out on April 16th. As I noted in my message, Israel's policy is clear. No humanitarian aid will be allowed into Gaza. We're not reading all that. Free Palestine. I shouldn't have even had to put that on the screen, but this is what brazen liars they are. And this is what an outrageous liar he is. That you could feel confident enough to go and say, we have let aid in throughout this whole process. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and just to point out, yes, we just did segments where Ben Gvir went on an Israeli show and said that they should be allowed to spit on Christians because it's an old custom,
right?
And it shouldn't be against the law. So even if you were to say, well, these are outlier incidents, which they're not. We showed articles going back to 2004 about this being a problem. If you care so much about Christians, wouldn't you instantly fire somebody working in your government who said something like that?
Right.
That this should not be against the law. It's quaint to spit on Christians. They've bombed every single church in Gaza, every single one. We showed that they've bombed Christian churches throughout the Middle East. There are Christian communities throughout the Middle East. In fact, there is a 5th century church that they recently bombed that had been there for over 1,000 years under Muslim rule. So how do you make the argument that it was so impossible for Christians to live in this world? This is what we have been brainwashed to believe, that the Muslims are intensely hostile to Christians and Israel is an oasis, which the more you dig into this, the more it seems to be quite the opposite.
Of course. Of course. He goes on.
And what has interdicted the supply of humanitarian aid is one force, Hamas. Again, the reversal of truth.
Reversal of truth. Okay, once again, not that we should have to show this. We showed it last show. This is, I think, largely what set off a sort of viral outcry over the famine in Gaza, because the famine in Gaza has been going on for a while, but last weekend, everybody was talking about it. I think this is largely why. Two reports. One, source from the Israeli military itself, which said that no, Hamas is not stealing the aid. And the second, from USAID, saying there's no evidence to support what Netanyahu just said. So he's the one reversing the truth on that.
Hamas robs, steals this humanitarian aid, and then accuses Israel of not supplying it. Well, we've enabled the amount required by international law to come in. There are hundreds and hundreds of trucks loaded with tons. So far, we've supplied 1.9 million tons of food since the beginning of the war, almost 2 million tons. And now we have hundreds of trucks that are waiting on the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. And it's international organizations, some of them very well intended, and it's the UN too. Food that they purchased, and we said, go ahead, deliver it. And they said we can't, because combat is going on. And we said, yes, we're combat, we'll fight. Where we're fighting, we'll continue to fight. But there are safe corridors. You can bring the food to anywhere you want. That is not a problem. So we've just announced that formally. Here are safe corridors. And the UN has no excuses left.
They have no excuses left. So here he is, talking out of one side of his mouth to this Christian group, bragging about the amount of aid they've let into Gaza. And here he is. Netanyahu admits Israel's limiting humanitarian aid to Gaza. Speaking in Hebrew, Netanyahu states, in any path we choose, we will be forced to allow the entry of minimal humanitarian aid. That was posted yesterday. So he's telling them, yeah, no, we got hundreds of trucks. Take all the food you want. Meanwhile, he's telling his own people that we're letting a minimal amount in to keep the international community off our back. Furthermore, in terms of the UN not having an excuse to not get the aid through, well, here's one possible excuse among many. The Israeli settlers are blocking it. There they are, blocking the aid convoys. So that would be one obstacle to these so-called corridors. So as you can see, the just outright lies, one after the other, in terms of no starvation in Gaza, will explain this scene here of desperate Palestinians rushing these trucks. Look at them crowding the truck, climbing over the truck. Does that look like a population that's not desperate and starving? There are a lot of videos like that. I'm sure you guys have seen quite a few. And you know who even took time to disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu's assessment that there's no starvation in Gaza? One, Donald Trump. Donald Trump rejects Netanyahu's claim on Gaza starvation. Quote, you can't fake that, he says. U.S. President Donald Trump rejected on Monday Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claims that there is no starvation in Gaza. Asked whether he agrees with Netanyahu's assessment, Trump said, not particularly, because children look very hungry. The number one priority in Gaza, Trump said, was getting people fed because you have a lot of starving people, adding that he was not going to take a position on Palestinian statehood at the moment. So here is Donald Trump taking questions about the famine. And just in case you can't hear that, she said Netanyahu just said there's no starvation. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry. But we're giving a lot of money and a lot of food, and other nations are now stepping up. I know that this nation is, right?
It's
here.
a humanitarian crisis.
Right.
It's an absolute catastrophe. And nobody wants to see that. And I think people in Britain are revolted at seeing what they're seeing on their screens. So we've got to get to that ceasefire. And thank you, Mr. President, for leading on that. And also,
what a worm. What a worm. He's not leading. He's not leading. He just said there's not going to be one.
So to just get more and more aid in. And again, America's done a lot on this. A lot of countries have done a lot. We're now working with Jordan on getting direct aid drops in, but this is a desperate situation.
Yeah, Starmer's talking like a guy who's getting dragged up and down Downing Street by Jeremy Corbyn, which we'll get a little bit more into later.
Trump also, I think it was in the van der Leyen press conference, backed Netanyahu up on, oh, yeah, they're stealing the food. It's terrible. They're stealing it.
Yeah, just pretty horrible stuff. But hey, what do we always say? We say, as outrageous as Netanyahu is, he's a moderate in Israel. He's not the most right-wing in Israel. So here is Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir calls Netanyahu morally bankrupt for allowing aid into Gaza and demands that the starvation of Palestinians continue. I think at this stage, the only thing you should be sending to Gaza is shells to bomb, conquer, encourage emigration, and win the war. So, yeah, that is Netanyahu's right flank, who apparently has him by the balls. I mean, Netanyahu is apparently terrified of the Israeli right. That's not to in any way minimize Netanyahu's agency or complicity in these crimes. Obviously, I would never do that. But you could tell the way he talks, the fact that he goes out of his way to remind his people, hey, we're only letting aid in because we have to, and we're letting the minimum amount. You could tell these guys really have him by the balls in Israel. Part of why they have him by the balls is because he's standing trial for corruption, right? They got dirt on him, just like he has dirt on Trump. It's a fucking human centipede of shit that everybody has on each other. That's the way this works, apparently. So the media in Israel, here they are making fun of the Palestinians who are starving. This guy here goes as far as to joke that one of the mothers looks like they ate their child. Yes, this is mainstream Israeli TV, Channel 14. I have to tell you from the pictures I see, I think they need to lose some weight. But you could call it selective starvation, like the selective shock of the left, because in the pictures you see very thin children, really hungry, and their parents are fat and healthy. Sometimes they may even suffer from obesity. It's really a phenomenon. I think it's... Do we have the picture of the mother of the girl? They claim they died of hunger. Maybe we should put her there. Is she dead already? You have to see the mother. Let's put it this way. When you see the mother, it's pretty clear what the girl died of hunger. Come on, let's see. Do we have it? Raise it a little higher. Great. Lower it. This is not a starving woman. This woman may have eaten all of her child's food. I don't know if I can think of any other option. A woman who ate a whole goat. Who ate the girl herself. Very funny. Very funny. So that is mainstream Israeli media. That's like the Israeli Fox and Friends, basically.
Yeah.
That's not even like considered fringe content.
That's the Israeli Good Morning America.
Yep. And some of the Israelis are even going as far as, here, Israeli News Pulse, to now, I mean, you talk about a distortion of truth, a reversal of truth. Now, Israel is blaming the UN for these scenes that we just showed you a little while earlier of Israelis rushing these trucks, claiming that this is really the dangerous way to deliver food as opposed to the GHF who were nailing it. The aid trucks entering Gaza using the UN's method. This is how Gazans get killed. And afterward, the UN dares to claim that the aid distribution method at the American GHF aid distribution centers is what endangers Gazans, even calling them, together with journalist Mohammed Mahadleh, sorry about that pronunciation, for example, death traps. What you see here in the video is the method that the UN and Western European countries are pushing for. Once again, it is a fact that over 800 Palestinians have been murdered while receiving aid. Mike Huckabee backs them up on this. Is the UN, New York Times, and Hamas all happy now? I'm sure Hamas is. Their lies and propaganda destroyed the ceasefire deal, tried to discredit safe and functioning GHF effort. So he calls that a safe and functioning GHF effort, and will result in this complete... I don't even know how to say that word. What is that?
Balagan?
Balagan? I've never heard that word.
Never heard it either.
He's smarter than me. Maybe he's not so.
Maybe he's speaking in tongues like the faith advisor.
yeah, exactly. Most sad for hostage families, grief prolonged. So now they're actually trying to make it sound like this method is worse than the GHF method, despite it's probably over 1,000 by now Palestinians killed, at least 800. And so as you could see here, Israel Exposed says everyone, including him, knows he's lying. Yes, the only thing Israel has left is lies. So you just saw there the avalanche of bullshit, from denial of the famine itself to rewriting not only the history but the current treatment of Christians within Israel, saying that there are corridors open, saying that we're allowing as much aid as can be reached in, while telling his own people we're allowing minimal aid. I mean, it is just lie after lie after lie, and it's clearly not working anymore. I mean, that's what's so stunning, is just how brazen and shameless they are. Even after they've been caught lying, they just can't help but keep lying, because this is the level of bullshit that has sustained Israel for 77 years. They've been lying this egregiously forever. They've just been getting away with it until the world actually started looking at them closer than ever before, as closely as they should have this whole time. So it's not that like they've gotten even worse. No, they've always lied this outrageously. It's just now everybody can see these lies for what they are because their eyes are open to it, and this is clearly not working. If even Trump is forced to contradict him and say, yeah, no, it looks like there's starvation there, that's when you know it's really not working anymore.
This is why Zionists are so completely insane, because this is all they listen to.
Yeah.
And this is where they go for their information. This is why even now you can talk to Zionists and they will just hit you with a wave of victimhood and grievance.
Right.
This is all to believe this. If to believe what he's saying, you have to believe that the majority of people all around the world are only accusing Israel of genocide because they're all anti-Semitic.
Yep.
They all hate Jews, and you know what? Jews are brought up to believe that.
Yep.
It is the ultimate woke victimhood psychology and politics. Everything is about being a victim. So as crazy as it might sound to us to hear Netanyahu say something like this, if you've been brainwashed from the time you could speak to see the world in this way, this makes sense. Oh, see? We let them in, and you see what happens, and then we get blamed, right? We get blamed. That's it, man. That's it. That's their whole worldview.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. Eric Torres says Gaddafi got a bayonet in the ass, but BB lives. That's right. Abiding 71 says, gonna let all you termites in on a secret. New York Giants 4th round pick number 44, Cam Scatterbo is about to take over the Meadowlands. Oh, interesting. All right, thanks for breaking that news. We missed that one too, Abiding. Appreciate that. All right, let's move right on along.
Oh, okay. So not only did Donald Trump decide to piss in the face of Keir Starmer, he also had a lot of fun at the president of the EU's expense. So here they are talking about their impending meeting on getting a trade deal. And you'll notice at the end how she reacts when they ask Trump if maybe the EU could get a better deal than 15%.
I think the president is right. We have a 50 to 50% chance to strike a deal. And indeed, it is about rebalancing. So you can call it fairness, you can call it rebalancing. We have a surplus, the United States has a deficit, and we have to rebalance it. We have an excellent trade relation. It's a huge volume of trade that we have together. So we will make it more sustainable.
Mr. Trump, can you do better than 15% tariff rate for the EU?
Better meaning lower?
Yeah.
No.
Mr. President, to return to Gaza.
Now the UK did get 10%, I guess, because of the special relationship. Now Europe gets 20% of its power from wind turbines. I am not here to litigate wind turbines. I know in Planet of the Humans, they expressed a skepticism from an environmentalist perspective on them. I'm not litigating that one way or the other. But he's pretty damned obsessed with the wind turbines in a country that he doesn't actually live in and that he has no particular skin in the game for in regards to their energy production. But every chance he gets, he keeps going on about
Cannot
these
shut up about the
windmills.
Yeah.
I mean, today I'm playing the best course, I think, in the world, Turnberry. Even though I own it, it's probably the best course in the world, right? And I look over the horizon and I see 9 windmills. It's like great. At the end of the 18th, I said, isn't that a shame? What a shame. You have the same thing all over Europe in particular. You have windmills all over the place. Some of the countries prohibit it, but people ought to know that these windmills are very destructive. They're environmentally unsound, just the exact opposite. Because the environmentalists, they're not really environmentalists, they're political hacks.
What do you say?
What do you say to that?
I gotta say, I do kind of hope that the next Democrat to take office puts a giant windmill on the White House lawn. That would be a good troll. That would be a good troll.
Well, and then he could put back Carter's solar panels.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That Reagan took down.
Yeah.
So he was asked about Gaza, and apparently the real victim of the starvation in Gaza is Donald Trump himself, because nobody has said thank you for the money that we sent for food.
Should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
Say it.
Should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
What did you say?
Should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
Well, you know, we gave $60 million 2 weeks ago, and nobody even acknowledged it for food. And it's terrible. You know, you really at least want to have somebody say thank you. No other country gave anything. We gave $60 million 2 weeks ago for food for Gaza. Wow. And nobody acknowledged it. Nobody.
Like, this is psychotic. Like, this is King Joffrey, Game of Thrones level psychopathic behavior. This is Caligula shit. We are the country that is funding and arming this genocide. And he's upset we haven't been thanked for giving some money for food to the people whose genocide we're paying for and equipping.
Yeah.
He talks about it. And it makes you feel a little bad when you do that, and you know, you have other countries not giving anything. None of the European countries, by the way, gave. I mean, nobody.
All right, look at her face. Like, just look at the pain on this woman's face.
Gave it us, and nobody said, "Gee, thank you very much." And it would be nice to have at least a thank you.
Gee,
and
thanks.
I took a lot of heat. You know, when I do that, a lot of people aren't happy about that because they say, "Well, why are we doing it and nobody else?" But I think we had a humanitarian reason for doing it. What's going to happen? I don't know. I can tell you that Hamas, as I said, would happen at the end. You know, we've gotten back a lot of hostages, a tremendous number of hostages, most of them. Now we have dead hostages, and the mothers want them back, and we have 20 people approximately, but that are living. But we have a lot of bodies, and the parents want those bodies as much as they would want their child if that child were alive. I met with parents that were, it was so sad. Sir, please get my son back. How is your son doing? Well, he's dead, but they have his body, and it's so important. It's more important. It's almost like more, but it's as important as if the child
She's like,
were
oh, don't
living.
look at me.
These
Don't look
people
at me.
were.
I mean, she's just frozen.
Devastated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And I
literally
said,
just deer in the headlights.
when you get it down to a certain number, you're not going to be able to make a deal with Hamas. Because once they give them up, then they feel that that's going to be the end of them. And what I said is exactly true. You know, they had a routine discussion the other day, and all of a sudden they hardened up. They don't want to give them back. And so Israel's going to have to make a decision. I know what I do, but I don't think it's appropriate that I say, but Israel's going to have to make a decision.
That's a long way of saying there was never any real negotiation going on. That's basically what that is.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I've long said this. A big part of the secret sauce of Donald Trump's political success is Americans love a slobs versus snobs story. And Donald Trump plays that in a way that no American president ever has. He is a one-man Rodney Dangerfield vehicle where he's the regular guy in Europe. It's like King Ralph with John Goodman, right? There's his base loves this. His base loves watching the president of the EU clearly looking like she just smelled something bad throughout this entire press conference and not being able to do anything about it.
Right.
They love watching Keir Starmer clearly wanting to crawl out of his skin every time he's in the presence of this man and have to be, yes, well, and thank you to the president. Yes. There is a very strong strain of that in the American psyche. Trump hits that about as directly as you could, particularly in this final clip, which is really the one that's making the rounds, where she obviously has just been completely defeated in these trade negotiations and is trying to put a good face on it.
Else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU, Mr. President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in the deal, if anything?
So the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side and a deficit on the U.S. side. And we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. And we wanted to do it in a way that trade goes on between the two of us across the Atlantic, because the two biggest economies should have a good trade flow between us. And I think we hit exactly the point we wanted to find. Rebalance, but enable trade on both sides, which means good jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, means prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic, and that was important for us.
Yeah, so she just completely adopted Trump's premises, which most Europeans reject. There's an imbalance in goods with Europe, but there's an imbalance in services going back towards the EU. Overall, the difference between the two, if you subtract the services and the goods, is the EU came out ahead about 50 billion, which in an economy our size is really nothing to tear up the whole trading system over it. But she adopts his language because you're dealing with the 400-pound gorilla here that has to be appeased. So these are the key terms of the deal. Trump said that the deal imposes a 15% tariff on most European goods to the U.S., including cars. The U.S. president had previously threatened 30% tariffs on goods from the EU. The EU also agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of U.S. energy and invest an additional $600 billion worth of investments into the U.S. above current levels. So now European leaders had varied reactions to this. You get the impression none of them are happy, but they just want to put it to bed. But some actually spoke up against it. This is from CNBC. European leaders were quick to applaud the agreement amid relief that the bloc had seemingly avoided a trade war, but some voiced caution about the terms of the deal. Ireland's Prime Minister Michael Martin said the agreement, quote, brings clarity and predictability to the trading relationship between the EU and the U.S. It does mean that there will now be higher tariffs than there have been, and this will have an impact on trade between the EU and the U.S., making it more expensive and more challenging. Ireland's Department of the Taoiseach said. I'm sure I pronounced that horribly. I apologize. Still, the agreement creates a new era of stability, the statement continued. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz welcomed the new accord, citing the benefits it would bring to the country's auto industry. Quote, with the agreement in the EU-US negotiations on tariffs, a trade conflict which would have hit the export-oriented German economy hard has been avoided, he said in a statement. This is especially true for the auto industry, for which the current tariff of 27.5% were almost halved to 15%. Especially here, the quick tariff reduction is of great significance, he added. He said the deal underway provides more clarity for our businesses and brings more market stability. Italy's government leaders, including Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, issued a statement saying the deal helps avoid a, quote, direct clash between the two sides of the Atlantic and guarantees stability between the U.S. and European Union. The statement also said Italy considered tariffs at 15% to be sustainable if that percentage includes and is not in addition to previous tariffs. Now, my dear departed best friend used to often say in very Queen's logic when we were growing up, yeah, Russ, listen, you want to get somebody to walk to the lamppost, you tell them, walk to the next block. And then when they go, no, I don't want to walk to the next block, say, all right, walk to the lamppost. That's basically what this is, right? I'm going to impose 30% tariffs. All right, I'll make it 15. This is great. This is great. It's only 15% tariffs. Now, somebody who's not buying that bullshit is Viktor Orban. This is what he had to say about this deal. So-called deal. Oh, look, he speaks almost as fast as the Israelis.
Yeah, he's pretty fast.
Even at first glance, it is obvious to me that this is not an agreement. So it wasn't a deal that President Donald Trump made with Ursula von der Leyen. It was Donald Trump eating Ursula von der Leyen. Let's just leave it there. Eating Ursula von der Leyen for breakfast. This is what happened, which we suspected, because the U.S. president is a heavyweight negotiator and the Madam President is a featherweight. In addition, the position of the U.S. president is much more confident, and the position of the president of the commission is always more fragile. I will say a few words about that later. What I can also say for sure is that the Americans have recently concluded a similar agreement with the U.K. That's much better than this. So the European agreement is worse than the English one. Therefore, it will be difficult to claim it as a success later on. Now, of course, hey, Buck stops here. She's the leader, so she's taking the heat. I will say the impression that you get from the statements from the European leaders is she was under a lot of pressure not to start a trade war. It's not like she went in there with the EU ready to back her on taking a hard stance. It looks like really they would have blamed her if she had done that, if she had walked out of there with a trade war with the United States. It seems like she was doing the will of her members. So I don't know that you can really assign the blame to her in that way, so much as the EU mostly lacking the guts to start a trade war with Donald Trump, to tell him to fuck off. But she's catching the blame. It's the price of leadership. But the Prime Minister of France is not going along. Francois Bayrou. It is a dark day when an alliance of free peoples united to affirm their values and defend their interests resolves to submission, seeming to call out his fellow EU members as well as von der Leyen. And this was pretty funny. This is a French journalist, Ronan Planchon. Disturbing to see a New York Times journalist barge into my kitchen at 8 a.m. to make scrambled eggs, then kiss my wife before heading to work. But oh well, it's part of the deal signed by van der Leyen. We're all winners. It's very French.
Yes.
And here's Arnaud Bertrand laying it out. If Europeans were paying attention or being told the truth, they should be beyond appalled by this deal. It's nothing more than one of the most expensive imperial tributes in history. Just a massive one-way transfer of wealth with no reciprocal benefits. The deal is the EU now gets charged 15% tariffs on its exports to the U.S. when they commit to charging 0 tariffs on U.S. imports in the EU. The EU agrees to invest $600 billion in the U.S. for no other obvious reason than pleasing daddy. That's kind of an oblique reference to the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, who called him daddy much to the humiliation of the Europeans.
Right.
The EU will purchase hundreds of billions of dollars of American military equipment. The EU commits to buying $750 billion worth of very expensive U.S. LNG, specifically $250 billion for each of the next 3 years. In exchange for all these concessions and extraction of their wealth, they get nothing. I'm not even exaggerating. That is the deal. The EU gets nothing. This does not even remotely resemble the type of agreements made by two equal sovereign powers. It rather looks like the type of unequal treaties the colonial powers used to impose in the 19th century, except this time Europe is on the receiving end. More worryingly, this sets a dynamic and a precedent. What do you think happens next from here? In the 19th century, were colonial powers content with their first unequal treaty? Of course not. One of the key rules of geopolitics is that weakness only encourages further exploitation. Again, this is Europe's century of humiliation. So now a lot of Americans, including Michael Schellenberger, say total victory.
Right.
Total victory for the United States. But you know what? Amazingly, on the Fox News network, Gasparino went off script and really called out the fact that this is not everything it appears to be for Americans.
Everyone at home, this is essentially 15% across the board tariff, so we're going to get some more income. No tariff on U.S. exports to the EU. Cool. $600 billion invested in the U.S. That's almost like the Japanese sovereign fund that they put into our country. I think that's $700 billion. But now they got to get $750 billion of American energy. I think a lot of that's natural gas. You studied this stuff. You know about the relationships between the EU and the U.S. What does it mean to you?
Listen, it's a good deal. Thank God we got it out of the way. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we had massive tariffs on their goods and they put tariffs on our goods, that type of trade war would not be good for the U.S. economy. I think the markets are going to like this deal. Now, let's just break down what you said. The stuff that they're buying from us, they probably would have bought anyway, Brian, to be real honest with you. They're cutting back on Russian natural gas, obviously, for a lot of reasons. They're building out their military because of Russian expansionism. So that they were going to do that anyway. And when you say we get 15%, true, but that means U.S. consumers are paying 15% more too. So it's kind of like a tax increase on U.S. consumers. That's one way to look at this.
That's like when Wolf Blitzer said, but if we cut back on the military, it's going to cost jobs. There's a lot of money there. Every now and then these guys tell the truth. He told the truth. They're not paying no 15%. You're going to be paying the 15%. Natural gas, military equipment. Trump announced that 2 weeks ago that they were buying military. We were going to sell them military equipment for the Ukraine war, which for their own reasons, they're absolutely committed to not giving up on. So they were going to buy that anyway. And obviously, if you're going to continue this war with Russia, you're going to need to start buying your natural gas someplace else. You want to say something?
Well, that's the thing. We're not giving up on the Ukraine war either, right?
Right.
So that guarantees a flow of weapons and an exchange of dollars for weapons from the United States to Europe. Yes, obviously. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that this deal was finalized just as Donald Trump is set to further sabotage the Ukraine peace talks.
Well, and
by shrinking the deadline, which we'll get to later. Sorry.
And this is where I'm saying you can't entirely blame her for the nature of this deal. I think Bertrand is right. But one, if you look at the responses from most of the European nations, France and Hungary accepted, it seems like most of them basically wanted her to do this, like get what she could. Clearly, they were not walking away without tariffs. And yeah, what did she do? She basically offered things that he already had and made it look like he got something because she understands Trump needs to be able to pound his chest.
Right. You need to be able
coming
to
out of
victory.
this meeting.
Yep.
So I think she's kind of getting savaged for a deal that probably could not have been better unless her EU members were willing to go to war, which they were not. They clearly were not, based on their reaction to this deal. But here's another point in regards to, from the American point of view, because you're hearing a lot about, oh, this is total victory for us. Is it? Now, this is a very good point from, he's an economic analyst, Joey Politano. The pitch to car makers right now seems to be build in the U.S., and you'll have to pay a 50% tariff on your steel because that's remaining. That's not coming down. And a 25% tariff on your car parts. Or build in EU, Japan, and you'll only have to pay a 15% tariff.
Right.
What are we even doing here? I mean, he's right. Like, why? I thought this was to get them to move the factory here. Well, why would you move the factory here if you could build there, not pay the 50% tariff on the steel and the 25% tariff on the car parts, and then just pay the 15% tariff to send the car back here?
Right, which you
So
pass
why
over,
build it
which
here?
you pass on to the buyer anyway.
Right. You got a 50% tariff on the steel. Right. why are you going to build here? That's a good point. Also, the EU president cannot commit the businesses in the EU to putting $600 billion worth of investment into the United States. She agreed to it. It's completely unenforceable. This is not China. They cannot simply tell their businesses, you're going to do this in coordination with the government, or for that matter, apparently what Japan agreed to, they did. I don't know if they spoke. I know they don't have that kind of authoritarian control over their businesses. They might have negotiated with them on the side to make this agreement, but Japan is doing it as a public-private joint agreement. But van der Leyen had to admit later, there's no way for them to enforce that part of the deal. On top of that, all of this might get blocked by the courts. Trump's trade deals and tariffs are on the chopping block in court. A federal appeals court will soon hear oral arguments in a high-profile lawsuit challenging Trump's authority to impose sweeping reciprocal tariffs. The case is the furthest along of more than half a dozen federal cases targeting Trump's imposition of tariffs using an emergency powers law known as IEEPA. Piper Sandler analyst said Trump will probably continue to lose in the lower courts and at the Supreme Court, rendering his recent trade deals illegal. So you got all of this going on when, meanwhile, and remember, Piper Sandler, these guys are just degenerate gamblers. These are just, they don't have a dog in the game. They don't have an ideological reason to believe that. Dog in the fight, rather. They don't have an ideological reason to make a statement like that. If Piper Sandler's saying that, it's probably true. It was always very obvious that declaring an economic emergency as grounds for the president to have king-like powers over trade and tariff policy was bullshit. The question was always who's going to stop him. Now, according to that article, it looks like ultimately the courts are going to stop him, and they seem to be pretty confident that even the Supreme Court is not going to buy this shit, and rightly so. Any president can just have unrestrained powers over trade this way, and you're not going to like it when a Democrat is in there, right? What are they going to do with that kind of power? The Supreme Court tends on these kinds of matters to rule in that, the three liberal justices are going to rule against him being able to invoke that. And I'd say, yeah, man, you're going to get at least three of these originalists who are going to rule that the executive doesn't have that power. That'll probably get struck down. So what are we even talking about here?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, you might have, Thomas and Alito go along. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look into it. You're more confident than I am in your prediction about how the court ruling will go. Obviously, yes, you're going to have the three liberals vote to strike them down, probably Roberts as well. Then the question is, does one of the conservatives break? And they've had a mixed record on that. But I mean, these emergency powers that he's claiming are obviously absurd, right? I mean, don't these go back something like 80 years or something like that?
They made the claim that the emergency started in the 30s.
In the 30s, yeah.
By definition, not an emergency.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's pretty crazy, which, yes, would make this all, sound and fury signifying nothing. But they are making the most of it. They are making the most of grabbing as many headlines as they can. And, this is clearly what I think Trump enjoys most about being president, is getting to do these deals, right? This is his favorite part. So, of course, it's going to get a lot of attention.
Foreign leaders.
And humiliate foreign leaders. Yes, exactly. So, fun while it lasted. We'll see if it holds up. All right. What do we got here? Monkey Spudum says, ladies and gentlemen, President Donald J. Quixote tilting at windmills. Thank you. Ovon the King says, glad I could finally catch a show. I missed the last two because I was live painting up in the north at a music fest. Ha. Did you hear about that guy Julian that was turning plastic into gas is missing? Yeah, I heard about some inventor went missing. I haven't looked into it, but I did see a headline of that nature. That's kind of interesting. Maybe for Thursday, that could be one. Thank you for that, Ovon the King. Appreciate that very much. Professor Brown Note says, hooray for DD, thermometer in the ass of present-day society. There you go. It's a good tagline for us. Saw Keaton on Anzalone. Yes, went on Kyle Anzalone's show last week. Shout out to Kyle. Slight camera mismatch made Kyle purpler and Keaton whiter. Made me hear a duet a la McCartney and Stevie Wonder's Ebony and Ivory to Prince's music, Purple Weiss. Purple Weiss. Well, it would be Purple Kyle. It would be Purple Kyle, right? So he was the purple one. Thank you for that. Kevin G, not that this is relevant, but since you have no time today, I'll just say Sydney Sweeney is a bimbo, a hater, Kevin G. Hamhawk, thanks for the $5. As a labor union member, I would just love nothing more than a full-scale strike, but I just recently learned the term Italian strike, i.e. at Ben Gurion Airport. Hillary Hinton, let's launch the phrase Gaza cost deniers. That's a good one. What's good for the goose steppers is good for the Zio criminals. Good one, Hillary Hinton. Thank you for that. Oh, George says, hey, guys, they even denied Christians their pilgrimage to Bethlehem for Easter this year. That's right. Easter was canceled this year. I remember that. Also, until Israel, Christians here didn't have to work on Sunday. That's right. Oh, George lives in Haifa. And when you called in last time, oh, George, if I recall, you said is it your father-in-law, your stepfather-in-law? Forgive me if I'm getting the details wrong. Was one of the original Jewish Palestinians, if you will. Like, they lived there before the Zionist project. So thanks, oh, George. I think I have those details correct. Let's be real. Bibi hates Christians and sees them as useful idiots, and he is not wrong. And Christians have been used as useful idiots since Reagan. Sure they have, yes, in this context and in some others, but especially in this one. Absolutely. No argument there. Let's see. Nocturnal Human says, everyone in the United States military is guilty of participation in genocide as long as they continue to follow orders. There's no excuses to it. They wear the uniform of genocide. Vito P says, is there anything more disgusting than hearing Paula White screaming, coming, coming, coming? Cancer sucks. You guys and a girl rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very much. All right. Oh, we got 665 likes. Come on. Someone smash that button so we can hit it. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Smash that like button, everybody, on YouTube and on Rumble. Got a nice crowd filing in now. 1,900 strong in the YouTube chat. 700 over on Rumble. Thanks, everybody, of course, for being here today. All right. Trump's trip to Europe. Kind of a mini theme of the show here. And, of course, he has been asked questions about whether or not this trip to Europe was a convenient getaway or attempted getaway from the Epstein scandal. And so he's asked about Jeffrey Epstein here. And you tell me, we can't accuse anybody of anything officially, but you tell me if this sounds like the answer of an innocent man.
You have said that you have not been briefed on the Epstein files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein files. but doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name?
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this: those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey. They were run by Garland. They were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the auto pen.
Yeah, they were run by Biden. I'm sure Biden was really in charge of that. Hey, do me a favor. Put that son of a bitch in those files. Let's just make sure we drop them in time for the election. When's the election? May? Oh,
you
shit.
do it before the debate. Don't forget before the debate.
Yeah. When's the election? April? Oh, it's November. Oh, it's too late. Oh, I lost the election already? Oh, I dropped out? Oh, I guess we really screwed that one up. God damn it.
Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax. They ran the files. I was running against somebody that ran the files.
It's the third time.
If they had something, they would have released. Now, they can easily put some.
Okay, so it's been less than a minute. He's already said they ran the files 4 times, and he said if they had anything, they'd have released it twice. So it's 6 denials in 1 minute. Let's see. Let's go. Keep going.
Something in the files that's a phony. Yeah.
Do you think that drawing, I think I heard you say something the other day, that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings.
We know he does.
Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, you know, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women. That I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, you know, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. I was at a very high position, you know, pretty much all my life. In all fairness, I've been doing this for a long time. I had the top show on television. I had the #1 bestsellers. I had everything, right? And I was a very successful business guy. He was a very controversial. Who would do a controversial drawing? Now, with that being said...
You would.
Yeah, and he wasn't controversial at the time.
Except in private circles, which is why yours was not the only lewd entry in the book. So obviously, yes, you would do the drawing, but so would a lot of other people do similarly themed birthday greetings, if you will.
They say there were many letters done by many people.
That's right, there were.
And many big people.
That's right.
Big, successful people.
Right.
Exactly.
I just,
you just kind of
don't-
made the point.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just undermined your whole thing. Hey, why would I write this? You know, a lot of people wrote him the birthday card.
He's a very controversial guy. That's why a lot of people who are even more successful than I was wrote lewd letters to this guy.
Exactly.
When you talk about files, I just keep going back, and other people too. Even the enemy says this thing is not correct, because if we had it, we would have used it on the guy.
It's
a bad issue.
Yeah, not if they're in it.
Yeah.
What was it about? What caused the breach?
That's such old history.
So the question was a little hard to hear. What caused the falling out between you and Epstein? And this is where he kind of makes a little bit of news, not in the sense that what he's saying is true, which I suspect it's not, but this is his new excuse for his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein.
Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out.
So we know that Giuffre was recruited from Mar-a-Lago into Epstein's ring. And now Trump is saying, yeah, he stole people, meaning, I guess, people who worked for him. So that's the new reason.
And that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
It was lucky, because it was lucky for me that I cut him off, because I certainly didn't know he was into child sex trafficking at the time that I knew him. We just happened to get into a fight about an unrelated thing, you know?
As my spiritual advisor often says.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Okay, so in 3 minutes of video, we had him say 4 times that the files are fake and that the Democrats ran them. We heard him say, what was it? 3 times that other form of denial. What did he say? I forget what the exact words were. And then 4 times now just saying, I've never been to the island.
One of my very good
one of my very good moments. I chose not to go to the island. It's one of the best decisions I ever made was not to go. Oh, 3 times he said I'm not in the files. Okay, so 4 times the files are fake. 3 times if they had something on me, they would have released it. And then 4 times saying I was never on the island. So you got what, 11 or 12 denials in 3 minutes. That is not the behavior of an innocent man. An innocent man doesn't repeat so frantically these claims over and over again. If you didn't draw the picture, you say, I don't know what that is. Must be a fake story. I didn't draw it. That's it. That's all. Right. You don't ramble on for minutes and minutes. And this is not the only time he's done this, but this was
draw
the worst
buildings.
example.
I draw. I'm an aficionado of Ansel Adams. I do a lot of landscapes. Everybody knows that. Right. But women, no, I don't draw women. I wanted to be an artist actually, but very much like the funny mustache man you might have heard of. I couldn't draw figures. I was terrible with figures.
Yeah. I mean that is the sound of panic there. I mean, come on. I'm like, tell me. I want these chuds to tell me that if a guy with a D next to his name gave that kind of answer when asked about the Epstein files or your relationship with Epstein or what, that wouldn't be viral on every MAGA account online.
No,
Much more viral than
now. Of course I would.
Yeah.
Of course I would.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
He invited me to the island, but I turned him down. I turned him in one of my better moments.
I said, island? I go to Richard Branson's island. I don't go to Jeffrey Epstein's island. I parasailing. That's my thing. I go parasailing. Everybody asks, Barack, what's with you and parasailing? That's more of a white boy sport. I said, no, I like parasailing. I'm the Jackie Robinson of parasailing. That's what I do. I do parasailing. I love parasailing. The only islands I go to are the islands I can parasail off of. That's it. I absolutely do not go to the child pedo islands. Not me. Come on. Like if you had Barack Obama make 10 denials in 40
seconds. I only go to islands where all the women are over 30.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I go to the islands where the women aren't even women. I don't even take any chances.
I call them ladyboys. It's all island off Thailand I like to go to.
Can't get into too much trouble with a ladyboy. There's only so much they can say to you. No, I mean, if that were Barack Obama's
answer. That's how I met Michelle.
That's how I met Michelle. Yeah. Like, if that were Obama's answer to, did you go to the Epstein Island? Come on. You're telling me that wouldn't be viral? Yeah.
Of
course. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stuff. All right, so we have more. We have more material on Trump's visit to Europe. Trump met with Keir Starmer, and as we mentioned on the last show, Keir Starmer was forced to issue a statement of concern for the Palestinians amid the intensifying famine there. This came at a time when Jeremy Corbyn, was launching his new party. And so this really was not a convenient time for Starmer to have to share a camera with Donald Trump. And Sky News kind of picked up on the dynamic here. Keir Starmer stutters and squirms during humiliating press conference with Donald Trump. So we'll see a little bit of this report. They kind of pick up on the same dynamic that I sensed.
Stuttering and stammering during a painful press conference with US President Donald Trump in Scotland yesterday. Keir Starmer was asked about Trump's stellar record on immigration and whether the UK could replicate this, which resulted in a word salad response.
The president makes it look easy dealing with illegal migration. You must be envious of his record in such a short period of time.
Well, I think we've been discussing irregular, illegal migration is a huge issue in both of our countries. In the United Kingdom, it is a real cause for concern, and that's why we must bear down on it.
And then Trump turned on Starmer's good friend, the Mayor of London, leading to this awkward exchange.
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job. The mayor of London, but the nasty person. I think he's
a friend of mine, right?
No, I think he's done a terrible job.
He doubles down on it again. Like Starmer tries to go, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
that's nice,
he's a
that's
friend of
nice,
mine. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Oh, he's a friend of yours. Well, I think he's a terrible guy.
But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Online
I
commentators
ordered
blasted
a
the
chicken
PM.
salad in London. It was mostly mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Here it wasn't like that before.
That's right. That's right. It's gone downhill. So, okay, so then they get into a couple of the Twitter reactions here.
But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Online commentators blasted the PM's response, saying, "As a Londoner, I'll say it loud and clear. Donald Trump speaks for me on Sadiq Khan. Khan's a nasty operator who runs this city into the ground and couldn't care less about the people in it. He's in it for himself." And Keir Starmer's limp defense of his friend is laughable. And in a humiliating move for Keir Starmer, Trump welcomed the PM to his private residence in Scotland, where Starmer awkwardly confirmed that free speech exists in the UK.
Free speech today. Well, free speech is very important. I don't know if you're referring to any place in particular. Perhaps they are, but
we've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud about that.
Yeah, tell that to
not
Richard
anymore.
Medhurst, Sarah Wilkinson, Kneecap, Bob Villain, the old man wearing the Palestine Action shirt. Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah,
absolutely.
The guy in the wheelchair they just arrested.
Yeah, just laughable. That earns us our first Nick Fuentes sound drop.
Fuck you. You suck.
That's right. That's right. You
Nice
suck.
ad.
Welcome
Nice
to the
ad.
soundboard, Nick Fuentes.
Fuck you. You suck.
Yeah. But yeah, look, this was very, very awkward for him because, like the first guy on Twitter said, like, he pisses off the conservatives, but also was a very weak defense of Khan because he's got to kind of like be nice to Trump. Like, he can't really get into it with Trump. He can't have a Zelensky moment with Trump on camera. So he kind of has to like defend the liberal position while also being polite to Donald Trump. And all of this happening, of course, as Jeremy Corbyn has a surge in registration for his new party. So you have Corbyn really in a prime position to exploit this sort of pickle that Starmer is in. Now, of course, the Corbyn's party surged in registration largely on the back of Starmer's hypocritical statement in support of Palestinians' right to food, despite having said at the start of the war that Israel had the right to cut off their water and power supply. So, you know, the fact that Keir Starmer is just showing his whole ass, what a hypocrite, what a shameless hypocrite he is at this time, couldn't have worked out any better for Jeremy Corbyn. And if there was any doubt that Starmer is feeling the pressure, here he is announcing just today, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced the UK will recognize Palestine as a state by the United Nations meeting in September unless, so he puts a condition on it, unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire.
I've always said that we will recognize a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution. And this includes allowing the UN to restart the supply of aid and making clear that there will be no annexations in the West Bank.
So, you know, a significant concession by Labour Party standards, but of course this is happening as a new left alternative party to the Labour Party is taking shape pretty quickly. As I understand now, they're up over 600,000 registrations, and Jeremy Corbyn drags him again, just pounces on this again. Palestinian statehood is not a bargaining chip. It is not a threat. It is an inalienable right of the Palestinian people. Our demands on this shameful government remain the same. End all arms sales to Israel, impose widespread sanctions, and stop the genocide now. Good for him. And, I predicted on Sunday, I said, I think this problem of Corbyn's party is going to get worse for Starmer in the coming days because you got to entertain Trump here. You have to, which of course, there's nothing that could better highlight the distinction between a new left party and this decrepit, useless Labor Party than having Starmer have this powwow with Trump. Nothing could better make the case that really the Labor and the Tories are just, two sides of the same coin. That's the old. It's a cliched way of talking about it, but it's true. That's the impression that this gives off. And so, Starmer sort of squirming and stammering his way through this meeting made the problem of Corbyn's new party worse, and he seems to be jumping on it. The fact that, now the UK is basically saying we'll recognize a Palestinian state by September if there's no ceasefire, like I said, that is significant as a measurement of public opinion and public pressure. Of course, geopolitically speaking, it's woefully insufficient, and that's what gave Jeremy Corbyn the opportunity to pounce on that and point that out. Say, hey, this is not a bargaining chip. This is their rights. People either have rights or they don't. If it's an inalienable right, then we don't use that as a bargaining chip. So what? Think of again, this is a guy who will say, Starmer, meaning, out of one side of his mouth, yeah, they deserve statehood and self-determination. And out of the other side of his mouth, he'll say Israel has the right to cut off their water, right? Well, same thing here. You say, well, we recognize statehood, but only if Israel doesn't cooperate. If Israel stops everything now, we'll just forget about the last 2 years and say, okay, no Palestinian state? It's politically incoherent. This is the exact kind of technocratic transactional politics that has come to represent both Labor and the Tories, just like here represents both the Democrats and the Republicans. It's the perfect opportunity to really show just how broken the system is as a whole, and Corbyn is taking advantage. You could not have drawn this up any better for him, that this would all happen this week when you launched the party.
I would say the question that comes from this whole European vacation of Donald Trump's this week, the van der Leyen meeting, this meeting with Starmer, is why are the European leaders such pussies? And there I think are historical reasons for this. A lot of people, Neville Chamberlain is much maligned for signing a treaty with Hitler. But if you delve into why he did that, he was in the trenches in World War I. That generation of Europeans was deeply traumatized by that war and really were very committed to the principle never again that they came out of that war with. We'll never have a war like this again. So he was willing to do almost anything to avoid another World War I. It seems like this formerly, arguably most warlike people in the history of the world, the Europeans, are probably geographical reasons for that, were just constantly at war for 2,000 years with each other. Coming out of World War II, just really adopted this very Neville Chamberlain view of we shouldn't have conflict, we should take care of our people, just kind of woke up from this nightmare of European history and tried to embrace a lot of the ideals of Marxism without actually having Marxism, hence social democracy, tried to have that as kind of a middle ground. And mostly it's more or less worked, I think. Certainly they've had a pretty healthy, educated, well taken care of populations in the societies they've created post-war. But it raises a lot of questions has it made the Europeans so soft that they just can't deal with a maniac like Trump? Like they just don't even have a concept of how to deal with something like this? Like clearly the way to deal with him is to tell him to go fuck himself.
Right.
And to see how much pain he's willing to take.
Right.
Especially you have this precedent of Taco Trump.
Right.
But he can see the Europeans are weak-kneed and are not going to do that. Now, this is not an argument for the United States. Putin's not like that. Xi's not like that. This is a European thing. The Europeans are really conflict averse.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Conflict averse.
In these situations in ways that make them really easy prey for Donald Trump. It's an interesting question. I think that's probably why. I think they've spent decades trying to almost make a complete break from the very bloody, violent past of internecine fighting that characterized Europe for so long. And the downside of that is it's left them with leadership that just can't deal with a guy like Trump.
It's true. It's true. I mean, if you look at the 20th century, just an absolute bloodbath in Europe. Right. And so, they have good reason to want to turn the page.
For a couple thousand years before that.
Yes. Yes. But I'm just talking about like very recent history in terms of like, people have family trees that are a lot more, bare than they should be because of the history of war. And so, you're talking about a war weary population too.
Right.
But so, I think that is a good point for sure. You could definitely see that dynamic play through.
Right.
Right. Because you got a guy who really shouldn't have the upper hand who does.
Right.
Michael says R.I.P. to Ryan Sandberg, Hall of Fame second baseman. Oh, yeah. For the Phillies, Cubbies. He died of prostate cancer at 65. Oh, that is too bad. Thank you, Michael Castillo, for letting me know. Empire We Are says, I wanted to go to the island. I really, really did. Could have had a lot of fun, but I didn't go. I wanted to, but no. Lots of pretty girls. Lots of fun. Thank you. Empire We Are. Appreciate that. Race Car, thanks for the $20. I just learned today that cheesecake is made out of cream cheese. Mind blown. Wow. Congratulations. Surprised Israel not using Grubhub or DoorDash to distribute food in Gaza. Huh? Yes. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Kawhi Cowboy said, did y'all hear there was another executive shot in Manhattan, Blackstone real estate executive?
Yeah, we're covering it.
Yep, we are
that wasn't the
that.
motive, though.
That wasn't the motive. No. Does not appear to have been.
It was not a Luigi.
No, it was not a Luigi. No. All right, folks, we're going to move right along. Before we do, though, I do have to remind you that tomorrow night is Wednesday night, and a Wednesday night means the Misty Winston Show is live on Rumble at 8 p.m. Eastern. So she's got guest Kyle Matosik tomorrow. She's going to be talking about Charlie Kirk lying for Israel, which was a video clip that I didn't have the stomach to watch, so I'm glad she's covering it so I don't have to. Trump and Malay. Trump attempts to deflect from Epstein, and Caitlin Clark's stalker gets sentenced, and the WNBA is silence. Yeah, Misty is a big sports fan, a big women's basketball fan, big Caitlin.
Oh, really?
Big Caitlin Clark fan. So I'm sure she'll have a lot of fire to spit over that. So make sure you're subscribed to our Rumble channel, because that broadcasts live exclusively to Rumble every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's the Misty Winston Show tomorrow night. And then we will be doing Film Club Thursday. So Thursday will be a doubleheader for patrons. We'll be doing a Film Club Thursday nights with what's the movie called? The Fall of Rome? Just kidding. Yeah.
The Decline of Western Civilization, Part 2, The Metal Years, directed by Penelope Spheris, which is quite the time capsule of the mid-'80s. The thing that brought it up was I used a very famous interview with Ozzy Osbourne for my Ozzy segment from that. And we said, it's
a good time to do it.
That.
Yeah. It'll be a good time to do that. So that'll be Thursday night. So full week of programming here on Due Dissidence. All right, let's move right on along.
Trump made a lot of news overseas this week, including imposing a new deadline on Russia to end the war. I guess he's getting embarrassed. This is a very long 24 hours to end the war. People are starting to talk. President Trump told reporters he plans to shorten the timeline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine to within the next 2 weeks, based on Russian President Vladimir Putin's continued attacks on Ukrainian cities. Trump had said July 14th that Russia would face additional sanctions and tariffs if it did not stop fighting in Ukraine within 50 days, putting the deadline at September 2nd. But Monday, the president indicated he would push up that time frame to early August. During a sit-down conversation with Starmer later, the president said he would move up the timeline to initiate sanctions against Moscow to about 10 or 12 days from today, adding, "We just don't see any progress made." Let's take a look at that.
Earlier you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days.
Yeah,
What is your new deadline?
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
I mean, it's not funny. It's tragic and horrible, but just to contrast that with, oh yeah, repeatedly insisting, yeah, 24 hours, I'll have it settled. Just the despair, the defeat on his face. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
The president earlier this month said the U.S. would impose severe tariffs on Russia if Moscow did not agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine in the next 50 days. Trump indicated he would impose a 100% secondary tariff, which would target other nations that do business with Russia in a bid to further hurt the Russian economy. Now, this segment was put together by Gen X Girl. She did some very good research here, kind of pointing out, what sanctions are you going to impose on Russia that you have not imposed on Russia already? Russia sanctions dashboard here. 2,695 before the invasion, 21,692 more since the invasion. I don't even know what you could tariff.
Well, you know the old saying,
kinds of numbers.
The old saying, 21,693 is the charm, right?
Is the charm,
yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
So here you see a pie chart on the left. The U.S. alone has 7,384 sanctions against Russia. Canada is the next with 3,639. And that's Switzerland, strangely, is number 3. Wouldn't have seen that coming. The UK is lower than you would think, 2,482. That might be because they need energy from Russia. There's only so far they could push it, but I'm speculating there. And then if you look on the right, the next closest sanctioned country is Iran. The total there looks about 3,500. And Russia, it's just astronomical. So what are you going to do? Like, this hasn't worked so far. What do you think more sanctions are going to do? Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022 after amassing troops at the border. Trump campaigned on a pledge to end the war within 24 hours, a time frame he later claimed was sarcastic.
Wow.
All right, let's go to the tape, and you tell me if he was being sarcastic.
You could end this Ukrainian-Russia war in 24 hours.
Yeah.
How?
So I know Zelensky very well because he was very honorable with the fake phone call, impeachment hoax #1. They said I made a phone call to him, and I was very threatening. I wasn't at all. I was actually very nice. I was congratulating him on a victory. But when they asked him, they said, were you threatened? He didn't even know what they were talking about. He was very honorable. He could have done grandstand. He said, yeah, I felt threatened. I felt threatened. He didn't do that. And as you know, I get along very well with Putin. I would tell Putin, got to settle. I would tell Zelensky, you got to settle. I would tell one, you're going to load up with money. I tell the other, you're not going to get any money. Yep. I would get a settlement in 24 hours. Now, it should have never...
So here's the plan. I look at Putin, I say, you got to settle. That's it.
That always works.
Solved.
That always works. That always works. So Melania, she didn't want to sleep with me. I said, you got to settle.
You gotta settle.
Now we're married.
That reminds me of the time my uncle was in Mexico with a couple friends, and they were asking they got lost and they needed directions somewhere, and so my uncle was going to go up to a Mexican guy and ask for directions, and his friend says, no, hold on, I speak Spanish, I got this, let me handle this, I got this. So he goes up to the Mexican guy and he says, you speak English? that was his expertise that he brought. That's like this, yeah.
Happened. You have thousands, hundreds of thousands of dead people right now, hundreds of thousands. You have cities that are obliterated. I don't know if you've ever seen the cities after they finish with the rockets. You have cities with no buildings standing. It looks like just a demolition zone. It's so horrible.
Sad.
And and then they'll say 2 people were hurt. No, hundreds of people and thousands of people were killed. You're going to find out when this whole thing is over that the number of people killed is far greater than they tell you. They're not telling you the truth.
No sarcasm detected.
No
sarcasm detected. You got to settle.
You got to settle.
You got to settle. We should put that on the soundboard.
That should be the sound. You got to settle.
And besides that, it is very unlikely that Taco Trump is going to be able to go through with this. Trump's threats of Russia-related secondary tariffs spark skepticism because this could really mess with trade negotiations we have going on with partners that we cannot afford to alienate. President Donald Trump's threat to punish Russia's trading partners if it does not pause its war in Ukraine could backfire, derailing negotiations with 2 important U.S. trading partners. That could prove too high a price for the president to pay, according to 3 former government officials with deep experience in U.S.-China trade and diplomatic relations. So if you take a look at the chart here, you'll notice a pattern on countries with sanctions against Russia. North America, Greenland. See, that's why we should just invade and incorporate them into our country. Europe and Australia down there. And what is that? Japan off the coast of Asia? Japan.
And South Korea.
And South Korea.
Yeah.
That's it.
Big world
That's
out
it.
there. Yep.
Africa, South America, Middle East, nothing. Obviously, like all of Asia. None of Asia has any of these sanctions.
Well, yeah, look at that
Russia.
big gray China out there. That's a big one. That's an important one.
Yeah, it's kind of important. Yeah. But really, I mean, it's all of Asia except for South Korea and Japan.
Yeah.
Like all of Asia does not have sanctions against Russia. Trump suggested last week that he could impose tariffs of up to 100% on Russia's trading partners if Vladimir Putin doesn't cease hostilities in the next 6 weeks. But Russia's closest trading partners are China and India, 2 countries that his administration is in delicate negotiations with on tariffs and market access. That aside, just the fact that these are the trading partners we'd have to sanction would imply that Taco Trump would back out anyway. What did Vladimir Putin do that in any way suggested to you that this would matter to him? Right. That he's going to in any way back off because of more sanctions? I have said this from day one, man. These are people who burn their own capital to deny Napoleon's army shelter. The Battle of Stalingrad, okay? Like, you are not getting the Russians to back down over sanctions.
No.
These people have not backed down under much, much worse threat and much worse conditions. So it's another one of these Trump gestures, but he's not dealing with Keir Starmer this time. He's not dealing with Ursula von der Leyen this time. He's dealing with Vladimir Putin. He'll tell him to go get his fucking shine box. And he's got to know that. He's got to know that. You know, Trump just says shit very often. Did he even think about this before he said it? You know, you get the impression he just wakes up in the morning and says these things.
Well, then you have to ask yourself, why shrink the deadline from 50 to 10 to 12? And it seems to me like, what our friend Nick Cruz said, which is that Trump's sort of main purpose that he served for the deep state and for NATO and for the military industrial complex, because Israel-Gaza was on a certain trajectory regardless of this. But the one perk from the deep state's standpoint of putting Trump in is that he gets to now sell the Ukraine war to the conservative half of the country. The liberals were already sold on it, right? And so you needed Trump to come in and say, hey, we tried everything we could do to end this. Putin's just not going to do it. So we guess we have no choice. But Trump already said we're going to keep arming Ukraine because we have no choice because Putin won't make a deal. Okay, so how is that functionally any different from Joe Biden? Functionally, it's not any different at all. You're just pretending to try and make a deal. But if you are as impotent as this, then you may as well not try. So at that point, what is the actual difference between Trump and Biden on Ukraine? Zero. The difference is now the conservatives are going to learn to take it, just like they learned to take Epstein, right? Just like they're going to learn to take Medicaid cuts, even though they were promised no Medicaid cuts, right? They are going to be cucked into essentially taking the pro-NATO, pro-Democrat position, which is, man, this guy's a madman. There's no reasoning with him, so we have no choice, right? Yep. That's it.
No. Look at all these accounts, man. Look at all these accounts that when it was Biden, we're all talking about Ukraine. Look at all these podcasters. We're all talking about
when you hear any of these people,
exactly. Courting World War III. You see them talking about that?
Nope.
I want to see Obama in handcuffs. I want to see Obama in handcuffs. That's it, man. It's all, as we'll see. I do a little analysis of that space in our Manhattan shooter coverage. Right. That's really the angle I'm covering that from. Anatomy of a grift. It's all a big grift, and you ain't in it.
Yep, 100%. All right. Hey, speaking of big grifts, why don't you become a member at our Patreon? Join at dudissidents.com/Patreon.
Support a grift you can get behind.
Yes, a grift you can believe in. That's right. dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. Fun week for members. We've got coming up a film club night this Thursday at 8 p.m. So a nice Do Dissidents doubleheader for Thursday for members. But that's not the only perk. We also did a post game last week where we do the last couple segments of the show exclusively for members only at a private link, and then a Q&A. We'll be doing the post game a little bit earlier ahead of schedule in August, since we are going to be away for the last week of August, making our Uhuru documentary, which is funded in large part thanks to the contributions of the patrons as well as the Give, Send, Go donors. We will have exclusive content during that trip for patrons and donors to the Give, Send, Go. We'll be posting public content as well, so we will have a lot of reporting to do from St. Louis as we make that film, but we will have member perks a little bit ahead of schedule in August, since we'll be out of town for the final week of August. So the member platforms, Patreon, Substack, and Locals, links are listed on the screen there. You also get call-in access once a week to our post-show Q&As every Sunday night, and full live stream replays ad-free emailed to you the day after they air publicly. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch the replay with the ad breaks on the major platforms, you can get the ad-free full replay of the stream emailed to you. Those are the perks of membership. You guys are the backbone of the show, and so we thank you all very much for your support. Andrew Baez says, national embarrassment European vacation. Yes, thank you. Good one. Good one. All right, let's go here. We got to stop that. Perfect. Stanislav says, they're not conflict averse. They're U.S. vassals. Are they risk averse when threatening to wage war on Russia? Sounds risky, but they're all for it.
They ain't got no boots on the ground.
That's true. They don't have boots on the ground. But it's a fair point. Oscar Reinfeldt, thanks for the super sticker over on YouTube. Appreciate that. Stoop Sign says, I always was a top guy. I had the #1 show on TV. I've had #1 bestsellers. Of course, I knew the best sex offenders. He was a man of appetites. Well fed, unlike the Palestinians. Thank you, Stoop Sign. Kenman G says, you guys are both funny as fuck. Well, thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that very much. Nocturnal Human says, I love the Wednesday Wisty Winston show. Yes, that's the running joke because of the Chiron mishap, I guess, on Jimmy's show. She talked about that a little bit too. Okay, let me just get this straightened out over here. For some reason, that tab.
A special guest host, Elmer Fudd.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the Wasted Winston Show. All right. We will move right on along, folks. Okay. This was some news that broke overnight within the Republican Party. Apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene became the first Republican to call Israel's conduct in Gaza a genocide. And the kind of roundabout way to getting there started with ABC breaking news. 15 people have died, including 4 children, from famine and malnutrition in Gaza in the last 24 hours, Hamas-run health ministry says. Now, even Stop Anti-Semitism had the bullshit line straight, which is, yes, it's terrible. It's too bad that these civilians died. And, of course, we have to blame Hamas for this, even though the New York Times confirmed reporting from within the Israeli military saying there's no evidence to back that, as has USAID. Stop Anti-Semitism, one of the most vile accounts on the entire internet, who smeared Miss Rachel, who tried to cancel Miss Rachel for anti-Semitism. Even they had the tact to say, you know what? This is heartbreaking, right? You know who didn't have such tact? Randy Fine. Randy Fine replies to that headline about Palestinian civilians who starved to death, saying, release the hostages. Until then, starve away. Starve away. As if a Palestinian child has the capacity to make a hostage deal. Starve away. And then he says, this is all a lie anyway.
Seriously consider
yes.
salads.
Exactly. This is all a lie anyway. It amazes me that the media continues to regurgitate Muslim terror propaganda. So that was last week. Now, of course, for those of you who do not, know Randy Fine as well as you may if you watched a lot of this content, he has made several statements very similar to the one that we just showed you. And so Max Blumenthal paid him a visit at a D.C. press event, asking him about his, quote, repulsive genocidal rhetoric and how long he'd last as an obvious glutton under the starvation conditions he supports in Gaza.
And Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone. You've been a big supporter of killing civilians in Gaza. I was wondering, how long do you think you would last under the starvation conditions that Israel's imposed in Gaza? Like, have you ever put yourself in the shoes of the people of Gaza who are starving?
I don't believe in those who believe that they should keep hostages. If Gaza wants the war to end, they should let the hostages go. You take hostages, you get what's coming.
Do you think you're encouraging anti-Semitism by these kinds of comments, supporting the killing of children, supporting nuking Gaza?
No answers. This is a press event. You can see it's a junket.
Yeah.
Why can't he do an adversarial interview? I thought you were the Hebrew Hammer. You seem more like the Hebrew Scammer.
I don't talk to idiots. Yeah. So as you can see, it's a press event. They have all those setups there, and did not answer those questions from Max. So now you're pretty much caught up. We've done some segments on Randy Fine. That is the kind of content he regularly posts. Yeah.
Our friend Dan Richmond, because I said for our next project we should go to the district he represents and find out who the fuck votes for this guy. And Dan Richmond said that's not even a Jewish area.
Yeah, no, it's just I think it was Mike Waltz's district. Was it Waltz's or the other guy from Florida? It was one of those two. I think it was Mike Waltz's district.
Why did they vote for this guy?
Well,
like, how did this guy win? I understand it's a Republican district, but there was no primary. Like, how did this guy wind up in office?
Yeah. No, well, I mean, that is the influence of the Israel lobby, really. I mean, it must be that they just propelled this guy to some sort of, position. He was an elected official within Florida. I think he was a state senator. But yeah, it is mind-blowing.
Like, this guy, he
absolutely
is a sick bastard.
Yeah, just a transparently evil person. I guess if you're running for statewide office, foreign policy just doesn't come up that much. He must have just not spoken about this that
Seems
often.
Like he leads with the Zionism. You may be right.
Maybe post-October 7th he does, but I don't know. But Marjorie Taylor Greene makes a similar point. But we're getting a little bit out in front of ourselves. So this whole blaming Palestinian children for their own starvation was a bridge too far even for the American Jewish Committee, who tweets out, the serious humanitarian situation in Gaza must not be taken lightly, especially by those at the highest level of government. Implying that starvation is a legitimate tactic is unacceptable. All those in need of humanitarian aid should receive it promptly and safely. Our leaders must focus less on scoring political points and more on doing their job.
Ixnay on the genocide, nay.
That's right. And quote tweeting that is Chris Brunet, who has an update. AIPAC has now disavowed Representative Randy Fine and removed him from their list of endorsed candidates. That's right. So the New Republic reports here, not even AIPAC wants to be associated with this GOP rep anymore. Has Florida Representative Randy Fine's shameless cheerleading for death gone too far for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee? That's, of course, AIPAC. After winning Florida's special election in April, Fine claimed that he was AIPAC's fastest ever endorsement, which he was. But on Monday, his name was mysteriously missing from AIPAC's database of pro-Israel candidates. So as you can see, if you go to AIPAC, you can search for the candidates that come with their endorsement. Plenty of Republicans on there, plenty of Democrats on there. As you can see, plenty of Randys on there. So if you search Randy, they have two Randys on there that they've endorsed. But if you expand that to Randy Fine, what happens? No matches anymore. Randy Fine not to be found on the AIPAC website any longer. It's not clear why Fine's name has been removed from the ranks of lawmakers championing consent for Israel's catastrophic military campaign, which has killed more than 62,000 people in Gaza. Of course, we know that's a gross undercount. However, one possible explanation is that Fine's recent remarks on the widespread famine in Gaza are too grotesque for even the most staunchly pro-Israel. In another post Sunday, Fine revealed, I mean, this guy is truly a psycho. Like, truly, this guy belongs in, like, a mental health like treatment center. I know Trump is talking about reopening those for the homeless. They should book this guy a bed there because this guy is an absolute lunatic. In another post Sunday, Fine revealed that the only thing he really supports is murder, pushing for a bill that would allow drivers to run over pro-Palestinian protesters blocking bridges and roads with impunity. Quote, the Thump Act will allow Americans to run over these Muslim terrorists, he wrote. They don't try this in Florida because of the bill I helped pass in the legislature to allow them to be run over. It's time to take it national. Thump. Now, before any of you Floridian chuds who hate watch us get any ideas, it is not legal to run over peaceful protesters in Florida. It is legal to, if someone is attacking you, you can hit the gas.
Well, that's the stand your ground.
That's the stand your ground type of thing. Yes, so exactly. It is not legal to just run over peaceful protesters in Florida. So there is the tweet there. They don't try this in Florida because of the bill that I passed. And, of course, the community note there says essentially what I just said, that no, it is not legal to run over peaceful protesters in Florida, no matter what you think of them. But he follows that up with, to be clear, the Thump Act will also allow you to run over BLM, Antifa, illegal immigrants, and anyone else who intentionally blocks roads. Thump. So this guy is trying to push through legislation that would make it legal to kill peaceful protesters. This guy is an absolute unhinged lunatic, an absolute fucking maniac, a maniac. No other word for this guy. Well, there are some of them. That's as far as we can go on YouTube about this guy. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene then comes in and says, I remember the first time I met Randy Fine when he was a candidate before he barely won Florida's deep red 6th district seat, as we were being told he might actually lose the seat because the strong Trump district couldn't relate to him and didn't like him. He was telling me that he and his wife were looking forward to moving to Washington, and he hadn't even won yet. I said to him that Washington isn't a good place to live and he should live in the district he will represent. You know, the whole representative thing. But he was adamant that they did not want to live in the district. And I thought, no wonder the district doesn't want to elect him. I can only imagine how Florida's 6th district feels now that their representative that they were told to vote for openly calls for starving innocent people and children. It's the most truthful and easiest thing to say that the October 7th in Israel was horrific and all hostages must be returned, but so is the genocide. So she uses the word genocide. First Republican to use that word. Humanitarian crisis and starvation happening in Gaza. But a Jewish U.S. representative calling for the continued starvation of innocent people and children is disgraceful. His awful statement will actually cause more anti-Semitism.
Yeah, think.
Yes, that is 100% true. And it is significant that she said that because she is a very pro-Trump Republican. She is a fairly pro-Israel Republican, not the most fanatical among them, because that is a tough title to claim, especially with Randy Fine now in Congress. But she is generally pretty supportive of Israel. And for her to call it a genocide, yeah, that is newsworthy in and of itself. And for her to call out her Republican colleague over this is also newsworthy. You know, it begs the question, as she poses here and as you, Russell, posed earlier in the segment, who the fuck votes for this guy? How can you pull a lever for this guy? And the fact that he's getting some pushback from within the caucus could maybe, hopefully, wake up his constituents to what an absolute unhinged lunatic this guy is.
From what she's saying,
this guy
he
belongs in a
had
mental
a hard
hospital.
time.
Yeah.
That's my question, like how to get through a primary, because this makes sense. She's saying he had a hard time in the district, in spite of it being a solidly red district.
Well, I think it was a plus 30 district, and he won by 15. Now, the Democrats, because of the overall dynamic in the country, have been outperforming the 2024 numbers, so it's difficult to say if that was backlash against him or just a general increase in Democrat voter enthusiasm and a decrease in Republican enthusiasm. You don't know, but we will find out in the midterms. I mean, because now it's national news what a sicko this guy is. Like, it's not ignorable anymore. Like, if you live in his district, how can you rubber stamp this? How can you vote for this man? It is just remarkable. The guy belongs in a mental institution, if not jail. I mean, I don't know if he's committed anything, but he's a psychotically evil man. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene is even coming out and saying that, but that is just extraordinary. I mean, the thump thuck that he's just a sadistic person, even beyond the Israel-Palestine issue. You can run over illegal immigrants if they block your car. I mean, he's a nightmare. I mean, he's just a real sicko. Unbelievable. Really unbelievable.
I'm gonna give this to his opponent for free. Best thing to happen to anti-Semitism since Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
That's right. That's right.
You can use that. You can use that.
It's also good that Marjorie Taylor Greene said that because, you know, we Jewish guys and Max Blumenthal, you know, a lot of Jews have been making that point over and over again, that this ultra-Zionist shit is terrible.
It's terrible
for Jews.
And that's where, like, the Jewish groups calling him out are guilty of tremendous hypocrisy. You know, this is what you're implying. You just don't want anyone to come out and say what he's saying.
Right.
You're implying it. You want to pretend that you're moral. You're not moral. If you were moral, you would say, we need to get rid of this apartheid state. It's not what Judaism is about.
Right. Exactly. But the fact that this is even, I mean, it's too much for AIPAC. That tells you everything you need to know. What that tells you is that he is a political liability. AIPAC has no conscience whatsoever. AIPAC is why this is happening to a large extent, right? AIPAC is why.
When you're too much for AIPAC.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Wow. That is a pretty damning indictment. And again, he's too much for AIPAC because he just puts too ugly a face on it. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Well, because he's saying the soft part out loud.
Right. We just don't consider Arabs to be humans, or really any of our political opponents to be humans in his case.
Right.
And so it's just open season on them. I mean, it's psychotically violent and evil rhetoric. Like I said, the guy belongs in a straitjacket in a padded room, much less in Congress. So hopefully the fact that he's making so much news wakes some people in that district up to who he is. It'd be interesting to see what price he pays for that at the ballot box, because you'd think it'd have to be something. I mean, these people probably didn't know he was like that crazy at the time. Because here's the thing. the Democrats are mostly pro-Israel too. And so they are not inclined to highlight how psychotically Zionist he is because they're Zionists as well, right?
Right.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that front. All right. Andy Gardner says, I thought y'all were the Hebrew scammers. Haha, good one. Yes. Kirk Lazarus, everybody knows you never go full Zio. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right, let's get to our New York City segment of the day.
Okay, as you probably...
hold on 1 second. Just for YouTube, we just got to say. So, folks, whenever we do a story covering a violent event, we've been advised by our YouTube manager, who's very lovely, by the way, very helpful, that we should issue the following disclaimer that the purpose of this segment is to provide commentary on a significant news event and is created for news, educational, and documentary purpose.
It is interesting as a New Yorker that New York fills the nightmares of so many people as being this violent, dangerous place because these mass shooting events really don't happen in New York. These are things that happen in other parts of the country. Generally, you don't see a lot of this in New York. I would dare say it's partly because we really don't have guns in New York. Readily available. It is very, very, very difficult to get a permit to carry a gun in New York City. So this was a very unusual story to have something like this happening in Midtown Manhattan. So we will take a look at ABC's coverage on this, on who the shooter was and what happened. But then this story really interests me on the level of how it was covered by a lot of the X world and podcast world, because I happened to be on X doing research for today's show when this broke. So I saw a lot of the way people were trying to manipulate the coverage before anybody even knew what was happening. So let's take a look at what actually did happen.
4 people and seriously injured another after a shooting at an office building in New York. Spent time in Southern California growing up. The shooter, identified as Shane Tamura, graduated from Granada Hills Charter High School in 2016, where he was a football standout. He transferred there from Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. Old teammates of his we spoke to described Tamura as a good person who never caused any problems.
And letters found on Tamura's body after yesterday's shooting show that he blamed football for giving him CTE. He also blamed the NFL, although he never played professionally.
As we continue to follow the latest, let's get to ABC's Nicole D'Antonio, who is live from Washington. Nicole.
Well, and Rachel, John, this morning we're also learning more about the moments leading up to that mass shooting. Police believe the shooter traveled cross country from Las Vegas to New York City before opening fire in Midtown Manhattan. This morning, an active investigation into a mass shooting in an office tower in the heart of New York City. Authorities say the shooter is 27-year-old Shane Devon Tamura. At the end of the workday Monday night, police say he walked towards 345 Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, wearing body armor and carrying a rifle.
The building's security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire.
Authorities say the suspect then went into the elevators where a woman was getting out.
The shooter then calls the elevator, which opens in the lobby. A female exits that elevator, and he allows her to walk past him unharmed.
He then rode to the 33rd floor, where he allegedly walked the floor, firing rounds, striking and killing a woman before police say he turned the gun on himself. The building where the shooting occurred is headquarters to major companies, including the financial firm Blackstone and the NFL. Inside, workers were told to shelter in place, some employees even using office furniture to barricade the door.
We heard multiple shots go off in quick succession from the first floor, and a lot of us just rushed into the room. Some went out in the back door, out onto the street. Other people, including me, we ran into the conference room and then eventually barricaded the tables across the doors and just stayed still.
Outside, witnesses described the chaos on the streets.
I heard, you hear like, I thought it was like drums or something, and then I was like, what's happening? We just kept walking, and then you see people.
Okay. Now, what we're going to look at first is what was out there while this was still an active shooter situation before it had been resolved. So, Olia Scootercaster, who does good work, who's a responsible journalist, I would say. She put out some footage. Nobody was quite sure what this was. There were 2 people who were arrested who, as it turned out, had nothing to do with the shooting incident. It looks like they were arrested as part of a Palestine protest, but it was unclear at first. So she put out this video, and this was going around. A lot of people were commenting on it.
Just to be clear, that girl had nothing to do with this
He
incident.
comes out of here with the he's from Palestine. He keeps saying free Palestine. He got his face covered up in the Palestine stuff. He walking out. The police don't pay him no mind. I said it's him. And then they end up getting him. They got him and they put him to the ground and they got him. Tried to bomb it up. I don't know. He tried to bomb it up, and so did the lady. The lady that he came in there with, she left with a red bruise on her face, though. She went down in.
She was with him?
So, frankly, if you put this all together, I mean, if she's to be believed, because she didn't seem all that well put together herself mentally, it looks like maybe she screamed at the cops, yeah, those 2 did it, and they got arrested. The reporting is they had nothing to do with this. So how did they wind up getting arrested? It sounds like maybe that woman fingered them, and they arrested first and asked questions later. I don't know that. That's only speculation. Okay, so you get this early reporting based on this. This is fairly responsible. That's the man who was also arrested wearing a Free Palestine shirt. Man and woman taken into custody after active shooter situation in Midtown Manhattan. The woman appeared to have a cut on her head. The man allegedly shouted, "Free Palestine, I'm not the active shooter," which again, indeed, he was not. Authorities have not yet confirmed whether either person was involved in the shooting. Again, they were not. There are unconfirmed reports of additional people injured at the scene. Okay, so this Unlimited L's, I looked at his account. Looks like it's kind of conservative account, but that's responsible. You know, like he didn't get out over his skis and make claims that he could not support. Olia Scootercaster being an actual journalist, she kept on top of it, and her last thing, she made it clear the 2 people taken into custody were in the area after an unrelated protest. There is no connection between them and the Park Avenue shooting, and it remains unclear why they were arrested. All right. So now, you know, among hunters, it's kind of an ideal to use every single part of the animal when butchering. The same applies to grifting podcasters. So you're going to see how they will not let an incident like this go to waste, man. They butchered this up right from the beginning and used every single part of the animal. So first you get the Zionists jump right on it. This is, again, these are, I'll tell you when we switch over to later reports. This is while it's going on. Nobody is clear who the gunman is, what's happening. No one knows anything yet. Eyal Yacobi, breaking. An NYPD officer has been shot in an active shooter incident in Midtown Manhattan. If Zoran Mamdani gets his way and abolishes the police, there'd be no one to stop the shooter. Literally did not wait for the bodies to get cold before twisting this to make a political point. And let me ask you, do you think this guy's concern is the NYPD? Or do you think his concern is Mamdani's position on Israel? Which do you think it is? Do you think this guy is trying to manipulate conservatives who are pro-cop into supporting Zionism, or this guy really cares about cops? Look at Trump with the kippah there.
Yeah.
I never saw that. Look at him with the kippah with A.L. Jacoby.
Well, that's
Another
the guy
one.
went viral for saying, "I do not feel safe." Remember that video? That's that guy. Yeah.
Shabbos Kessenbaum. I wonder what his position is on Israel. While spineless politicians like Zoram Mamdani discuss abolishing the police, the NYPD are busy saving lives. God bless the men and women of the New York Police Department. They are simply the best of our city. Please join me in prayer for New York's bravest. Okay, look, I don't know the guy, but I don't think his concern here, his purpose here, is really to show his heartfelt support for the NYPD. It's to worm his way in with pro-cop conservatives and get them to support a Zionist agenda. Because, again, I mean, I'm sure from the name you already knew, another virulent Zionist. Steve Gruber here. Active shooter in Midtown Manhattan in New York. FBI is on the scene. Possible civilian casualties. Witness claims he was screaming "Free Palestine." Now, that's technically true as far as it goes, but it was very unclear whether or not that was connected to the incident. So why would this guy be making a point of throwing that into his claim? Well, because he's a wannabe. He's a wannabe. He's a conservative commentator trying to build an audience. He knows that's a way to get eyeballs. That's a way to get clicks. So please pick me. Please pick me. That's what that is. Now, this is where it really takes a turn. Crisis Watch. Breaking. CNN claims the Midtown Manhattan shooter is most likely a white male. But does that match what we're actually seeing? Many are questioning the accuracy of CNN's reporting. Once again, by many, at that point, he means Gunther Eagleman. All right, so let's see the clip of video that they're referring to.
They do not know who he is. They know he is a male, possibly white. He's wearing sunglasses. He appears to have a mustache. And that picture has been distributed to every police officer in New York City, particularly has been sent to the phones of the search teams inside that building, because whenever they encounter a group of people, the first thing they have to figure out is that individual among these people?
Okay, so as somebody who talks a lot on a mic, I'm going to tell you, and I'm sure anybody who watches the show on the regular already knows what I'm about to say. You end up saying a lot of stupid things on a mic. I'm sure you would agree that we say a lot of stupid things on these mics. It's hard when you're sitting there and spending hours and hours and hours and hours. The guy did not say what they claimed he said and what many claimed he said. Most likely is a white male. That's not what he said. He said possibly white. I don't know if he had seen the picture. I mean, yes, it's pretty obvious he's not white from the picture, but you just get thrown onto a mic at CNN. He did not necessarily see the picture, or he might have just glanced at it. It's an errant thing that the guy said. Certainly not something to make a big case out of in what I'm sure was lots and lots and lots of coverage that CNN did. But you got to use every part of the animal. You got to use every part of the animal. You got a big news event. You got to milk it, right? Especially when you're trying to be a breaking news site and you've got 324 followers.
Right.
You really got to milk this kind of thing, right?
Right.
CNN added again. Active shooter on Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan is most likely a white guy. He didn't say that. He did not say that. CNN is out of their minds. Does he look white to y'all? Okay, so
this guy
Jakey
looks white
here,
to me. Yes.
Yeah, he looks pretty white. Does he look white to you?
This guy is most likely a white male, I would say, based on that picture.
Most likely. And me and Keith were, and okay, so why would you do this? Why would you do this? You got to remember, a lot of these people are pick-me's. This guy's got, 468,000 views on that tweet? on an account with 14,800 followers. So that's why you do that. That's why you do that, right? He's trying to juice his numbers. He wants to get picked. He wants to be one of the players. He wants to be Gunther Eagleman. These guys all want to be Gunther Eagleman, because if there's anything that guy has proved is you don't even have to understand the workings of grammar to get rich in that space. If you pump out the right kind of shit and catch the right kind of breaks. Here's another one. Creamy corn cob. CNN describing the shooter as possibly white. At least he got it right. Possibly. You deserve to get your FCC license revoked. Yeah, it's not excessive at all. Shooter is more aligned with this type. This type.
See that?
Yeah, this type with wearing a headscarf.
No, they're wrong too, because the guy's not Middle Eastern. They're going off of the word of that witness, quote unquote.
Right.
She's really not a witness. She's not a witness to the crime. She's just there when stuff is going on.
Right. So this guy is like, I guess he's NASCAR. I guess he's a NASCAR guy. So we have talked on this show about race hustlers. I don't like the Ibram X. Kendys. I don't like the Robin DeAngelos. I don't like when they jump on an errant word or phrase and use it to build up racial animus and tension. And you know what? I'm sure all these accounts have the same issue, but they're just fine with this kind of race hustler. They're just fine with Gunther Eagleman. How is this not a race hustler? That's a race hustler, right? I'm pretty sure this started with Gunther Eagleman, because all of the videos I saw of that CNN initially had his watermark. So I'm pretty sure he's the one who grabbed that clip and decided to create a story from one commentator saying one ill-advised, random, speculative thing in hours and hours and hours of coverage. But yo, man, you can go look at his X account. He's got like 20 tweets about this at least. Everyone meet John Miller, CNN. He is the CNN guest who initially claimed that the suspect in yesterday's shooting was most likely white. Did not say that. Again, did not say that. Leave him a message and let him know what you think. He's tagged. CNN showed its true colors this evening. They hate white people and spread misinformation. CNN, white male with a picture of the shooter. And hey, man, Benny Johnson's not going to get left out of that cash. It's a fugazi. It's a fugazi. He's got to eat too. NYC shooting updates. CNN calls black terrorist white. No, they didn't. How is this not misinformation? How is this not you being lied to by the media?
Right.
Is this the only kind of media that when they lie, they're not lying? They're lying to you. They're literally lying to you. You saw the clip. Everyone who says they called him white, said he's most likely white, is literally lying to you under the cover of claiming CNN lied to you. And, this claim made the big time, starting with, I believe it started with Gunther Eagleman, made it all the way up to Sky News. All the way to Sky News, trying to get in on some of that cash. CNN slammed for claiming New York City shooter was possibly white. God forbid.
Now on MSNBC, they said he's hopefully white. That's what.
Hopefully white. Yeah, well, then you got a case.
That's a case.
That's a case. All right. So speaking of Mamdani, of course, there was a lot around this. So he put out a statement. I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting in Midtown, and I'm holding the victims, their families, and the NYPD officer in critical condition in my thoughts. Grateful for all of our first responders on the ground. Okay. Paul A. Zypola, he's one of these accounts. You repeatedly said you wanted to defund the police. Self-deport. Now, this is what his actual... Now he has, in the past, he has put out tweets that are predictably coming back to haunt him. But this is his actual position that he's actually running on regarding defunding the police.
What do you think is the right way for Democrats and progressives to talk about law enforcement, or the right relationship that they should have with law enforcement today?
You know, I've shown over the course of this campaign a clear recognition of the fact that police are critical to creating public safety across this city. And my proposal for the Department of Community Safety is one that was born out of my conversations with rank and file officers who have told me time and again their frustration with signing up to join the police force to tackle serious crimes and then being asked to play the roles of mental health professionals and social workers and fielding 200,000 mental health calls a year. And ultimately, my desire is for the police to be able to focus on those serious crimes, to be able to do their jobs by stopping asking them to respond to nearly every failure of the social safety net. And that's why we have put forward this proposal to create a department that will tackle mental health crises, homelessness, victim services, hate crimes, gun violence, so that police can go back to those 7 major categories of crime we see in CompStat. Because ultimately, New Yorkers deserve to be safe. They deserve a police force that is able to focus on keeping them safe. And what we've seen is that in 2025, in the first quarter, 65% of crimes that were reported are yet to be solved. We need to make it easier for police to focus on solving those crimes. And I've been very clear, we're not defunding the police. We're sustaining the headcount of the police department and allowing them to do their actual jobs.
Okay, Zoran.
Okay. I am not going to say that bringing up past tweets that he put forward is not legitimate politically. I think they're using it in a way that's illegitimate. No, I don't think it's out of line to bring up somebody's past public statements to question them. At the same time, it's very clear that they do not want to litigate what he's actually proposing, because what he's actually proposing, I think most people would find pretty reasonable. Cops are not trained to handle these situations. We've had many cases where people who were autistic or mentally ill got shot because the cops didn't understand what they were dealing with. And that's not entirely their fault. That's not the kind of thing they should deal with. If his numbers are correct, that they get 500,000 mental health calls a year and 65% of crimes go unsolved. This is another thing. You know, they talk about how his economic policies are bad for the city, as if what they're doing is working. Well, if you've got a cop as mayor, this guy's a cop. He was on the force for 20 years. The guy who's the mayor now. And you got 65% of cases being unsolved. So clearly what you're doing is not working.
Right.
So why would you object to allowing police to focus on actual crime and to take some of the funding and create a unit that deals with what they shouldn't be dealing with in the first place? They don't want to address that because most people would agree with it. They don't want to draw attention to his actual position because it's a position I think most people would support. And that's why they don't want you to hear it. They want you looking at his old tweets. So here's Nick Sorter. That's it. The DOJ must initiate denaturalization proceedings against Zoran Mamdani. He must be blocked from appearing on the NYC ballot. He can go run for president of Uganda. Oh, no, this is not a racist movement at all. This is not a white supremacist movement at all. Look how quickly with Mamdani, they go right to really very, very thinly veiled racism. He can go run for president of Uganda. What does that mean? Laura Loomer, kind of the queen of crazy internet bitches. The cop killer in NYC who just killed an NYPD officer was a Mamdani supporter. No evidence.
Totally wrong. He didn't even live here. He's from Vegas, wasn't he?
He's from Vegas.
Yeah.
He reportedly also supported the Free Palestine movement, too.
Again, total wrong.
Yeah. Zoran Mamdani is inspiring a generation of pro-Islamic cop killers. This is why you don't elect Muslim immigrants to office.
Fuck you. You suck.
Wu-Tang is for the children responded. Of course, Loomer is out here spreading her insane bullshit. The shooter was from Vegas. probably had no clue who Mamdani even is. Yes. And another banger from Loomer. I don't care who this offends. I don't feel safe with Muslims holding office in America. Mamdani inspires cop killers and Islamic terrorists to wage war on the streets of America while screaming free Palestine. This is why I will never care about Gaza.
Maybe you should move to Israel then.
This is what I'm saying, man. If I believed what these people claim to believe, honestly, man, I'd be in Israel like that.
Right.
If I believed what they claim they believe. What the fuck are you doing here? Why are you here? So political punk responded to this. Mamdani is not in office. Eric Adams is. Donald Trump is. MAGA are swine. Yeah, who's in office? As I just said, you've got a 20-year veteran of the force is the mayor. This didn't happen under Mamdani. This didn't happen because of any policy that he may or may not support. Why aren't you blaming Eric Adams, the cop, who's the mayor right now?
You're rage tweeting at the guy running for mayor. Meanwhile, you got the cop mayor.
You've got the actual
who's watched
cop
this happen
mayor.
under. Yeah.
And Riley Gaines, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, jumping on the grift. She's not going to let this grift pass. Do you not realize how terrifying it is? This is happening in a city where the mayoral candidate wants to defund the police. Riley, you get back in your lane. Yell at trans swimmers and shut the fuck up about issues you don't know the first thing about. You're a moron. Shut up. Jesus Christ with this one. You're setting blondes back 30 years. Casantos, the police are not defunded, and Eric Adams, the current mayor, is a cop, and this happened. Mamdani has not even won the election, and y'all are blaming things that are happening now on him, not his opponent, who is the current mayor. He said that in response to Riley. Couldn't have said it better myself. You know who was surprisingly restrained? Just a little footnote. Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I have been briefed on the tragic shooting that took place in Manhattan, a place that I know and love. I trust our law enforcement agencies to get to the bottom of why this crazed lunatic committed such a senseless act of violence. Nobody tell him it was football. My heart is with the families of the 4 people who were killed, including the NYPD officer who made the ultimate sacrifice. Bangladeshi, by the way. God bless the New York Police Department and God bless New York. That was surprisingly restrained for him. And
shockingly not unhinged, yeah. Maybe he started medication. I don't know. Is he on meds now?
Shockingly hinged. Well, he probably didn't write it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's another good point, because these people like Loomer who want to make this a Muslim thing, but want to talk about how much they love the police. It was Bangladeshi, the cop who was killed.
The cop who was killed, yeah.
So should he be deported too? Should his family self-deport now? Is ICE going to come get them?
Right. Yeah.
But if you just look at the anatomy of that, it really shows you how that whole space works. They do not care about what kind of damage they're doing to society. They don't care about the way that they're deceiving and misleading the people who are going to them and trusting that they're going to get news. It is one big grift, and it is a grift that I think does a lot of damage to the conversation. And I'm not going to say that doesn't exist on the left. It does. We've covered it a lot. But this is that grift on that side. I mean, clearly there's a big race hustle that is the exact mirror reflection of the Robin DiAngelo Kendi race hustle. It's exactly the same race hustle. Look for something that you can capitalize on. And that's how these people make their money, man. That's how they make their money. It is very damaging to civic society. It is very damaging to our political conversation and the real function that they serve on both sides of this. is to keep you angry at anyone but the wealthy, whether it's the people serving the Democratic Party and getting you mad at the white people in your neighborhood and hating white workers and blaming them for everything that's bad in society, or it's the Gunther Eaglemans telling you to blame everyone who's not a white worker for everything that's wrong in society. All of it is about keeping you from looking at the billionaires and the corporations that have extracted most of the productivity and wealth gains in the society since 1970. Because you start paying attention to that, they're in trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. They're afraid you're going to come with the torches and the pitchforks. The whole function of this whole grift is to make money. You're talking about people who are immoral enough, who have such a lack of decency that they don't care about destabilizing society and setting neighbor against neighbor as long as they're getting paid to do it. And you saw it in real time there.
Yep, absolutely. Before anybody had any idea what was true or what was not true, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's unfortunate
They didn't give a
because...
shit. They wanted to turn it into culture war before they even knew what the facts were.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate because you have Scooter Cash there, Freedom News. She's everywhere. I mean, she does great stuff. She's everywhere on the moment. She covers very important topics. And so she has that footage. She puts it out. You know, I think given the way bullshit spreads on X, I think if you had it to do over, you probably wouldn't have put it out of that woman saying, hey, they scream free Palestine. Not that it's malpractice. It's not. But given how easy it is for grifting slime like Gunther Eagleman to take something and run with it, yeah, man. This is why I tell you on X, it's always trust but verify. Right? Trust but verify, because you can never just take for granted that something is legit. And as for all these people, yes, they are race hustlers. You know, I always found it interesting when, you know, you call Al Sharpton a race hustler, Ibram X. Kendi a race hustler. I always, in the back of my mind, whenever I hear people, you know, called race hustlers, I say to myself, you know, I've never heard a white person called a race hustler. It's kind of funny how that works. Only black people tend to be called race hustlers because it's a majority white country, right? So what looks crazy when it comes from one community is often not scrutinized when white people do it. Well, what is Gunther Eagleman if not a race hustler? What is Matt Walsh if not a race hustler? They're all race hustlers. What are these people piling on this Omar Fateh who's running for mayor in Minnesota? Yeah, they're race hustlers. They're race hustlers.
Of course.
You're, in this case, you're jumping on a very innocently spoken thing like he's possibly white. Right, which again, you're filling time, you're talking live, you know. Right. Possibly white doesn't mean anything. It means we don't know what the race of the person is, and it's often relevant to say that in real time to give your best estimate, not because it's important what race they are, but it's important for the authorities to know who they're looking for, what the guy looks like, right? And it's often the first thing you use to describe a person. So yeah, they seize upon that, and yes, of course, there's absolutely zero regard for the societal costs of their grift. None whatsoever.
It's to direct your rage at something. That's it. It's rage bait. And that is addictive. It's addictive. Like the more you fill your headspace with things to get angry about that are completely outside of your control, the more you're going to come back for that fix. And if you walk away from that, this is part of what addicts people to it, I think. Then you got to face your real fucking problems. These are not your problems. These are not your problems. And these are not the things that are causing your problems. They want you to think about everything but the actual causes.
Yep. 100%. All right, we got 2,000 strong in the YouTube chat. All right, we got Mr. Fancy Pants for $49.99 over on YouTube. Let's have a cowbell for Mr. Fancy Pants. Thank you for that, my friend. Shortly after 10/7, I went to a Jewish Voice for Peace protest. We surrounded the congressional offices. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out on a patio, recorded us, and posted on X, calling us anti-Semitic. Ah, that's interesting. Her reversal says less about her and more about how much goodwill Zionism has lost. Yeah, interesting. Thanks for that. And thank you for the generous donation. But yeah, that's crazy. So she goes from calling you anti-Semitic to saying it's a genocide. Wow. Thanks for that, Mr. Fancy Pants. Dorian Marquise, thanks for the 199. Randy Fine's statement would be praised in Israel. Yeah, well, that's I mean, he's basically like Itmar Ben-Gvir type, right? I mean, he would be a right-wing Israeli, but not outside of the mainstream at all. Russell's Peasant Mind says Riley Gaines may be a grifter, but given the chance, this peasant would certainly grift her. Thank you, Russell's Peasant Mind. Appreciate that very much. Professor Brown Note says, breaking, infamous gonzo reporter Russ Dobulganger, haha, good one, detained at Costa Rica airport. Witnesses said reporter drew ire by insisting he was making a video essay. Ah, good one. Thank you, Professor Brown Note. Randy Fine's gut could feed the whole of Gaza. Thank you, Kenman. I have never heard you guys say anything stupid on a mic, only brilliance interspersed with foul language. Well, thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we're going to move right on along here. Okay, so here's some news that kind of slipped under the radar, but I think it's pretty important. Brazil to join South Africa's ICJ genocide case against Israel. This came out last week. Now, following this development, Brazil now withdraws from IHRA shortly after country joined South Africa's genocide case against Israel. So the IHRA, we've spoken about quite often on this show. That's the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Brazil has now withdrawn from that. Brazil has withdrawn from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, where it had served as an observer member since 2021. Israel's foreign ministry and Brazilian media announced last Thursday. Brazil's decision to join South Africa's legal offensive against Israel at the ICJ while withdrawing from the IHRA, is a demonstration of a profound moral failure, tweeted Israel's foreign ministry last week. At a time when Israel is fighting for its very existence, turning against the Jewish state and abandoning the global consensus against anti-Semitism is both reckless and shameful. While the Brazilian government has not officially confirmed the withdrawal from IHRA, the move has been confirmed by various anti-Israeli Brazilian groups. Brazilian paper Metropolis also claimed that the Israeli embassy in Brasilia has been informed. Sources from Brazil's foreign ministry told another paper, UOL, that one of the reasons for the withdrawal is the financial resources that are needed in order to remain with the alliance. So if the foreign ministry is confirming it, that means it's pretty much a go. The Organization of American States, which is an imperial arm of the United States, of course, Commissioner for Monitoring and Combating Anti-Semitism, Fernando Lautenberg. Well, with a name like Fernando Lautenberg, you almost have to be a Latin American anti-Semitism expert, said on X, the Brazilian government's decision is a mistake. Brazil has the second largest Jewish community in Latin America, and being integrated into the IHRA is a way to demonstrate commitment to a culture of peace, and to promoting education about the Holocaust and combating anti-Semitism. The IHRA definition of anti-Semitism represents an important tool that, although not legally binding, is adopted by over 45 countries and 2,000 institutions worldwide to inform, identify, and combat anti-Semitism. So for those of you who don't know,
and 1,999 of the chairs of those institutions had sex with a minor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. For those of you who don't know, we've covered the IHRA pretty extensively on this show, so I assume most of you do. It really equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Two of the more draconian tenets of it are that it is considered anti-Semitic, according to the IHRA definition, to call Israel a racist state. And it is anti-Semitic, according to the IHRA definition, to compare the conduct of the Israeli government to that of the Nazis during World War II. And so basically what the IHRA definition exists to do is not to create a more peaceful world, but, of course, to create a legally binding framework that would allow for censorship of anti-Israel speech, not anti-Semitic speech. Especially at a time of rising hate cases, as has been recorded in Brazil, great care must be taken so that actions unrelated to diplomatic tensions do not affect the safety of the large Jewish community living in the country. Well, that's, of course, nonsense, because what the IHRA does is it equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, which means that it governs your speech on international diplomatic tensions, right? I mean, that is what it exists to do. So the Combat Anti-Semitism movement here drafted this report, the IHRA working definition in the post-October 7th world. And Gen X Girl put this together and had a very good find here. So if you look at the LinkedIn profile, which is public, of course, on the right, Seema Vaknin-Gill, who now works with Combat Anti-Semitism movement, if you look at the bottom of that resume there, chief censor for the state of Israel. So she was the chief IDF censor. So these the people pushing this IHRA, almost all have ties to Israel or work with NGOs that are pro-Israel. It has nothing to do with combating anti-Semitism. It has everything to do with suppressing speech on behalf of Israel. Looks like Russell froze there. Unless I froze. Did I freeze? No, I'm here. Can people see me? Russell's camera went out. Am I visible on the screen?
Dude, all of a sudden, the whole thing crashed.
Oh, your thing crashed. Okay, so here, you got to exit. There we go. Okay. All right. You probably got to put your stuff in.
Yes, yeah. Fortunately, it happened at the end of the show. I don't know what happened. It just crashed.
Yeah, no, that's weird.
Weird.
You have time. I thought it was me.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So Brazil has a total of 6 IHRA adoptions, including 4 out of its 26 states. 4 Brazilian states: Rio de Janeiro, Roraima, Sao Paulo, and Goiás. Don't come for me with the pronunciations there. The 4 Brazilian states that adopted the IHRA definition this year, meaning 2021, I assume, encompasses nearly 70 million people, or approximately 1/3 of the country. So, despite these positive steps, according to Combat Anti-Semitism, of course, anti-Semitism disguised as criticism of Israel persists in Brazil. The president of Brazil himself, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, recently made statements about Israel that almost certainly qualify as anti-Semitic per the IHRA definition. He asserted in February of this year, okay, so it was this year, that what is happening in the Gaza Strip with the Palestinian people hasn't happened at any other moment in history except when Hitler decided to kill the Jews. Lula did compare the behavior of Israel to that of the Nazis. And see, this is why this is important, because the IHRA definition is technically non-binding legally. Of course, what they use this for is to lobby governments to censor on behalf of Israel. And as we know, Brazil, unfortunately, is a censorious state. We did that segment on Jimmy's show about a stand-up comedian who's facing a possible 8-year prison sentence for making offensive jokes. And this is why censorship is so dangerous, because it can easily turn something more symbolic in nature and legally non-binding in nature into something quite dangerous. The Simon Wiesenthal Center Latin America said withdrawing Brazil from an international organization that seeks to preserve the memory of the Holocaust and combat anti-Semitism is not a measure against the state of Israel. It is contempt for Jews and will allow Lula to compare us to the Nazis without remorse. Again, he did not compare Jews to the Nazis and compared the action of the Israeli state to the actions of Nazi Germany. And just to give you an idea, as the research suggests, everyone speaking out against this is some Israel-affiliated organization. So the Simon Wiesenthal Center, of course, rage tweeted at Jamal Bowman over his opposition to the Iron Dome. So you notice a pattern here. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the ADL, because as you can see, the ADL also getting their talking points from Netanyahu. So here is some of what we showed earlier in the live stream, not in this segment, about Israel's Eighth Front War, which is a war fought in the global public mind. So we're going to see a little bit of Netanyahu, and then we're going to see chair of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, using almost identical language.
The guardian of Christianity in the Middle East is presented on American television by purchased influencers. It's presented as the enemy of Christianity. What folly, what lies, what a travesty of truth. So one of the things we have fought now,
And I was going to mention this before. This is something else we covered this past week. Israel is bringing hundreds of influencers to the country in order to propagandize them into speaking on Israel's behalf.
Right.
And he's talking about paid influencers.
Yep.
front war, we have an eighth front, and that is the front and the battle for truth.
Need to recognize that there is an eighth front in this war. It might not be a terrestrial border that you can find on a map, but this domain is as volatile, is as violent, and is as vital to our future. The information sphere, the infosphere, is the eighth front in this war. And seizing the high ground in the fight for global public opinion is a battle that's as important to the long-term war as what you've done in Lebanon and Syria.
Yes. Sounding just about exactly like Netanyahu there. Here is ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt talking about these new surveys that they do every so often with some troubling results regarding quote-unquote anti-Semitism.
Every 2 to 3 years, like a sentiment analysis to try to gauge how the majority population feels about Jewish people. So in this case, we do a domestic survey in the United States. And what I can tell you briefly is that we've been doing these surveys, I should say, since the 1960s. So we have a lot of information, a lot of longitudinal data. We're a very data-driven, evidence-based organization. And basically, in the last 5 years, intense, elevated anti-Semitic attitudes have more than doubled their share of the population. In 2019, it was 11% of the U.S. population had intense anti-Semitic attitudes. Today, in the last 5 years, it's gone from 11 to 24%. Now, globally, the numbers are even more stark. So when we did our first global survey of 100 plus countries in 2014, and we work with the market research firm Ipsos, based here in Paris, to do these surveys. In 2014, we found that 26% of adults worldwide had entrenched or extreme anti-Semitic attitudes. 26%. That's more than 1 billion people. We thought that was a lot. When we ran the survey last year, in 2024, that percentage went from 26% to 46%.
Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why that happened. I wonder why that happened. Now, bear in mind, the ADL adopted the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism in 2016, which means when they talk about anti-Semitism, they are mostly talking, of course, about anti-Zionism. Here are some of the questions that they asked. What are your impressions of Palestine? 54% favorable. What are your impressions of Israel? Only 39% favorable. Again, that does not convey anti-Semitism. That conveys opposition to Israel. But the ADL uses the IHRA definition, so they make no distinction there. And even as far as this goes, they're not as anti-Israel as you might think listening to Jonathan Greenblatt. Should your country welcome tourists from Israel? 75% said yes. Is hate targeting Jews a serious problem in the world? 59% said yes, it is. Now, understand that. Is hate targeting Jews a serious problem in the world? Those who agree with that. You can disagree with that and not harbor ill will toward Jews. You could say, well, I don't think anti-Semitism is a huge problem worldwide. That doesn't mean you endorse anti-Semitism. It just means you don't see much of it and you don't think it's a destabilizing threat to Jews worldwide. I would probably answer, no, I don't think it's a huge problem worldwide. Should your country boycott Israeli products? Only 25% answered yes. Should your country have diplomatic relations with Israel? 71% said yes. So even on his terms, he's kind of misrepresenting the findings of this. Like, this doesn't convey any broad-based anti-Semitism or even any broad-based contempt for Israel, but it's too much for him to stomach, of course, because he makes a lot of money scaring Jews about anti-Semitism, right?
Yeah.
So back to the article. The Palestine Arab Federation of Brazil, however, celebrated the withdrawal from the IHRA, which it called an arm of Zionism created to hijack the memory of the Euro-Jewish Holocaust by the Nazis and instrumentalize it at the service of the colonial and genocidal project of Israel and Palestine. Bingo.
Well
that is
said.
100% what it is. So why is it that two Jewish guys here are reading the Palestine Arab Federation of Brazil's definition of the IHRA and saying, yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because that is exactly what it is. It's actually a disgrace to the memory of the Holocaust, the victims of the Holocaust, and their descendants. That's what this IHRA definition actually is. And I got to say, good for Brazil for withdrawing from it.
Yeah.
Even if this is only symbolic, it's a hugely important statement for a country of Brazil's standing in the world to make, which is that we are not going to be bullied into silence by bogus accusations of anti-Semitism based on bogus definitions of anti-Semitism. You are not going to use that to shut us up. We reject that. That is very important, and this is why we're saying Israel is losing this war long term, because hopefully, if and when this actually becomes formalized, which I suspect it will, if the foreign ministry is telling the press it's a go, then it's got to be a go, right? But this could set a very powerful precedent, which is that you don't have to be afraid of these smears anymore. Steve Bannon said people are not going to tolerate being smeared as anti-Semitic for opposing Israel. Steve Bannon's a very pro-Israel guy. It's common sense. The people are not going to take this. The people are not going to be silenced by these accusations when they are so transparently and obviously made in bad faith. So obviously, good on Brazil for joining the ICJ case, and good on them for doing this. I wish Brazil were not as censorious as they are.
Yeah.
Now, listen.
That's the irony here.
That is an irony. Now, look, it's not my business. I don't live there. The only reason it stings a little bit is because we know a few friends of ours who are peers in the space who do live there. And since we are both sort of considering the expat life, it was on my list of places to go. And so kind of sucks that I don't really feel like it's accommodating enough to free speech. But hey, they don't owe me anything, right? They can run their society how they want. I don't have to love it. But that makes it all the more important that they are rejecting this, because the point, the reasons we oppose censorship is because it is a slippery slope. And so a state that does censor speech, unfortunately, I think it's all the more important that they say, okay, well, we are not going to equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. That has legally binding repercussions in a place like Brazil, which will potentially lock you up for wrong speak, right? That makes these decisions all the more high stakes. So for all those reasons, I think it's pretty significant that they are rejecting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. This has to catch on worldwide, as we displayed in this segment, thanks to Gen X Girl's research. There is a coordinated effort by Friends of Israel to spread this definition as far and wide as possible, not because the definition itself is legally binding, but because, hey, you lean on a government that censors speech. Hey, as long as you're censoring speech, why don't you censor this speech, right? So it's very, very dangerous stuff, and good on Brazil for standing up to it.
Yeah, well, it's the meme that's going around every day. One day, everyone will have always been against this.
Right.
In the end, Israel cannot win this. Their crimes are so monstrous that the entire world is turning against them. And this is really only an issue, as we saw in a previous segment, in the Western world. It's really only an issue in the Western world. It's just North America, Europe. Nobody really supports the Israeli state. There was a recent poll worldwide. The majority of people worldwide
believe that Israel is committing a genocide in country after country after country after country. It's only in these Western countries that you have this disconnect between the government and the people in this way. But you're seeing in Keir Starmer saying, well, I mean, it's a very mealy-mouthed thing, but it says a lot that in a country where, when I was there for the Assange thing, I filmed the projections they were doing on the side of Big Ben that were just free Palestine. And the prime minister, I forget his name now, Rishi Sunak, claimed that it was anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it wasn't even free Palestine. It was stop bombing Gaza, right? That was it.
Well, amongst others, there was free Palestine. Yeah, they claimed it was anti-Semitic. The fact that now you have Keir Starmer saying they're going to recognize Palestine if there's no ceasefire by September, which there almost certainly won't be.
No.
So then what do you get? Because you already have France now saying they're going to recognize Palestine. You have Spain. You have Ireland. If England goes, I mean, who's going to hold out on recognizing? And at that point, you've got tremendous momentum. I know with the horrors that we're seeing, it's very difficult to see it this way. Israel is not going to be able to continue to exist as an apartheid state. It's just not. And, something that Americans should think about if they're crowing about Donald Trump's big European humiliate the leaders of Europe vacation. That's all well and good until your country stumbles and falls and needs help. People are going to remember this. We're not always going to be in this position. We're creating a situation where when the dollar crashes due to de-dollarization, we have a banking crisis. When America needs help, we've given the entire world every reason to tell us to go get your fucking shine box. And at that point, if Israel does still exist as what it is now, it's not going to exist very much longer.
No, of course. I mean, there are going to be dire economic and diplomatic consequences for this country as well, obviously. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing, like, all this talk of tariffs. What? I mean, we don't really see fear struck into the hearts of these other countries. They'll figure something out. They'll figure something out. The world will figure something out. We are acting as if we carry a lot more weight than we do. And I think the Ukraine war was a big part of that. I think weaponizing the dollar against Russia was a part of that. And obviously, this genocide is a huge part of that. I don't think you can really minimize that. So, yes, I think for all those reasons, the momentum politically is on the anti-Israel side. And, the more countries just stand up and say, no, look, we're not going to be bullied in this way. Fuck you. That has a lot of impact. And a state like Brazil, as big as it is, that has a lot of impact. So good for them. Yeah. All right. What do we got here? We got, all right. EO Shush says the ghost of Lee Atwater lives on today. Thank you, EO Shush. Otacon says New York gun permit scheme. Oh, I knew we'd hear from you. The New York gun permit scheme is unconstitutional. Is the reason for the landmark SCOTUS case NYRPC versus Bruin in 2022, which strengthened 2A protections nationwide, but New York continues to ignore the SCOTUS ruling. Why don't you come here and do something?
And yet we have very few shootings. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, when people
Isn't
don't
that
carry guns
strange how
all
that
around
works?
all the time,
Yeah.
well, fewer people get shot because people just kind of chill and don't bring guns places because they don't have them. Saw a headline which looks promising. Colombia looks to tighten its sanctions against Israel. You're talking about Columbia the nation, not Columbia University. I think Columbia the nation is spelled with an O. As I understand, Columbia University is paying reparations to Jewish students who felt harassed by the protest. That's what I've heard. We'll have to look into that maybe for Thursday. All right, we got one more. We got one more on the day. Told you it's a big news day, folks.
All right. So you might remember this was very nice. There's a website, middle-aged dog killers with fake breasts.com. And they sent one of their models down to CECOT to entertain the prisoners. This is what she said.
Today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Yes. I don't think you could find a better example of the fact that we are ruled by criminals than Kristi Noem standing outside of a very clear example of cruel and unusual punishment, gleefully bragging that we're doing this to people. As we always knew would, we just didn't know when. The stories are coming out about what the treatment in that facility is like, and it's as horrific as you would have imagined. This is ProPublica. On March 15th, President Donald Trump's administration sent more than 230 Venezuelan immigrants to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. Without providing evidence, Trump has called the men some of the most violent savages on the face of the earth. Last week, the men were released as suddenly as they'd been taken away. Now the truth of all their stories, one by one, will begin to be told. This is just a little bit of a news report summing up some of what's been coming out since they've been released.
Post has revealed some of the harrowing details shared by.
I was just going to say, before we play this, we should just mention that a vast majority of the deportees had no criminal history at all.
Yeah.
None.
Washington Post has revealed some of the harrowing details shared by people who were detained in CECOT. Writing, in the 4 months they spent there, the detainees said that they were beaten repeatedly with wooden bats. One man says he was robbed of thousands of dollars and denied access to lawyers or a chance to call his family. Another man said he was hit so hard he lost half a molar. And listen to what yet another detainee told Sky News.
We were constantly beaten. We suffered physical, verbal, and psychological abuse. There wasn't a day where the wardens didn't tell us that the only way we'll leave that place was if we were dead. In fact, the first words that the head of the prison said to us after the first beating was, "Welcome to hell."
Now, even if you do support mass deportations, why on earth would you support this? Why? They didn't do anything. It's deport them back to Venezuela, which is ultimately what happened. There was no reason not to just deport them to Venezuela, even if you were going to deport them. Why send them to a foreign torture prison in a country that they're not from? This is, a lot of times liberals, they're very often fond of saying of conservatives, the cruelty is the point. Well, you've definitely lived down to that. A lot of people who identify that way have proven them right. What else is the point here other than the cruelty? There's no reason to do this to these people. Hell on Earth, a Venezuelan deportee describes abuse in El Salvadoran prison. It's from the Los Angeles Times. When Jose Reyes Barrios and other Venezuelan deportees entered a maximum security prison in El Salvador in the spring, he said guards greeted them with taunts. "Welcome to El Salvador, you sons of bitches," Reyes Barrios said the guards told them. "You've arrived at the terrorist confinement center. Hell on earth." What followed, Reyes Barrios said, were the darkest months of his life. He said he was regularly beaten on his neck, ribs, and head. He and other prisoners were given little food and forced to drink contaminated water. They slept on metal beds with no mattresses in overcrowded cells, listening to the screams of other inmates. Quote, "There was blood, vomit, and people passed out on the floor," he said. This is from Fact Post. Former CECOT detainee, "We were constantly beaten.
We suffered physical, verbal, and psychological abuse. There wasn't a day where the wardens didn't tell us that the only way we'll leave that place was if we were dead. In fact, the first words the head of the prison said to us after the first beating was "Welcome to hell." Reyes Barrios, back to the Los Angeles Times, 36, was one of more than 250 Venezuelans sent to El Salvador from the United States in March after President Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang without normal immigration procedures. Many of the men, including Reyes Barrios, insist that they have no ties to the gang and were denied due process. After enduring months in detention in El Salvador, they were sent home last week as part of a prisoner exchange deal that included Venezuela's release of several detained Americans. Venezuela's attorney general said interviews with the men revealed systemic torture inside the Salvadoran prison, including daily beatings, rancid food, and sexual abuse. One of the former detainees, Nair Adrian Leon Rangel, filed a claim Thursday with the Homeland Security Department, accusing the U.S. of removing him without due process and asking for $1.3 million in damages. Here's another video showing some of the other prisoners.
Arturo Suarez tearfully reunited with his family in Venezuela on Tuesday after being released from a months-long detention in El Salvador's notorious CECOT prison.
Pensé en mi hija, pensé en mi esposa, pensé en mi hermano, en mi familia.
I thought of my daughter, thought of my wife, thought of my brothers and my family. That gave me strength not to give up, not to let myself die. And I didn't let myself. I didn't let myself because I'm a warrior. I'm Venezuelan. And we made ourselves heard in El Salvador.
Suarez, a singer, was one of the first of more than 250 Venezuelans to arrive home after being sent back to Venezuela last week in a prisoner exchange. The Venezuelans were sent to El Salvador from the United States in March after U.S. President Donald Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged gang members without normal immigration procedures. Suarez had gone to the U.S. to boost his music career, according to his wife. Family members and lawyers of many of the men deny they had gang ties. Suarez said the guards at the CECOT prison beat prisoners and told them they would only leave dead. His comments tallied with other allegations of abuse made by former prisoners in videos broadcast on state television. Venezuela's attorney general said on Monday that his office will investigate El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele and other top officials for the alleged abuse of the detainees.
I mean, I'm sorry, man. That guy looks like a bad guy in a low-budget movie about a drug-running head of state.
Yes, yes.
A one-time professional soccer player, Reyes Barrios, left Venezuela last year amid political unrest and in search of economic opportunity. He entered the U.S. on September 1st at the Otay Mesa border, crossing in California under the asylum program known as CBP-1. He was immediately detained, accused of being a gangster, and placed in custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A court statement earlier this year from his attorney, Lynette Tobin, said authorities tied Reyes Barrios to Tren de Aragua based solely on an arm tattoo and a social media post in which he made a hand gesture that U.S. authorities interpreted as a gang sign. The tattoo, a crown sitting atop a soccer ball with a rosary and the word Dios, or God, is actually a homage to his favorite team, Real Madrid, Tobin wrote. She said the hand gesture is sign language for I love you. Reyes Barrios was not aware of the controversy over deportations as he was ushered in handcuffs from the airport in San Salvador to the country's infamous terrorism confinement center, also known as CECOT. There, Reyes Barrios said he and other inmates were forced to walk on their knees as their heads were shaved and they were repeatedly beaten. He said he was put in a cell with 21 other men, all Venezuelans. Guards meted out measly portions of beans and tortillas and told the inmates they, quote, would never eat chicken or meat again. Reyes Barrios said guards told him and the other detained Venezuelans that they would spend the rest of their lives in the prison. Reyes Barrios said he started praying at night, quote, God protect my mother and my children. I entrust my soul to you because I think I'm going to die. Then several days ago, he and the other prisoners were awakened by yelling in the early morning hours. Guards told them they had 20 minutes to take showers and prepare to leave. At that moment, we all shouted with joy, Reyes Barrios said. I think that was my only happy day at CECOT. After arriving in Venezuela, Barrios and the other returnees spent days in government custody, undergoing medical checks and interviews with officials. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has seized on the treatment of prisoners, airing videos on state television in which some deportees describe suffering abuses, including sexual assault, beatings, and being shot at with pellet guns. Venezuelan authorities say they are investigating Bukele over the alleged abuse. Okay, you got to ask yourself at this point, if you're part of the "this is what I voted for" brigade, really? This is what you voted for. This is what you voted for. You know, I know a lot of folks with the whole "this is what I voted for" like to think of themselves as very macho. Do you really think that if you were in a very poor country where your family lacked economic opportunity and there was this place to the north you might be able to go to improve the situation for your children, for your wife, you wouldn't do it? Now, if you feel that this is bad for America, so these people should be deported, okay, you know, you can have that belief, I think, without being a monster. I don't think you can believe that this is what should be done to these people without being a monster. And I think a lot of people who have been convinced that the reason their life sucks is because of immigration. And I've said many times, I don't believe that the immigration at the border crisis, such as it was under Biden, was unintentional. I agree with that. My personal belief is the unions were getting too strong and they wanted to destabilize the labor market. That's my opinion. I'm not saying there's nothing to see there, but that doesn't mean that you want to round up these people and literally send them for torture. If that is who we are as a nation, on what grounds do you assert that this nation has a right to even exist, much less that this nation has some kind of moral authority over other nations? If you're willing to literally torture people for nothing more than coming here to try to have a better life, well, this is not that shining city on the hill that we are supposed to be. And at that point, what are you so proud of? Like, why would you be proud to be American if America represents torturing people who come to live that American dream we're supposedly so proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I would take it one step further and say that, you know, a country that, you know, aids and abets a genocide in Gaza, what standing do we have to be high and mighty about anything, including immigration law?
Yep.
Right. Well,
Yep.
we so what? We dropped 2,000-pound bombs on babies, and then we're going to tell these people, hey, there was a fence there you shouldn't have crossed. Oh, well,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Now, look, I understand, you know, if you feel that, you know, mass deportations are necessary. Like I said, I was against mass deportations from jump because I had a feeling they would be implemented in a very cruel way. Even I didn't have this on my bingo card. But okay, like I said, you know, you could support deportations without supporting torture. This is torture. There's no question what this is. This is not a question of do you support deportations or do you support a tighter border? You know, I'm probably more liberal on immigration than a lot of people, but whatever. I mean, that's a debate you can have. This is not that debate. This is a debate about torture. This is a debate about cruel and unusual punishment. Even if these people were gang members, there's still this thing called cruel and unusual punishments. Like, obviously, if you're a gang member and you're a violent criminal, you have to be detained and imprisoned for the safety of the people, right? Nobody's arguing against that. But there is a strong argument to be made against torture in all cases. In all cases, just
well, that's
plainly
unconstitutional. Which I mean,
unconstitutional,
frankly, knowing the conditions of even our prison system, you could argue we're in constant violation of cruel and unusual punishment.
Yes.
This is obviously next level, which is why they have to outsource it.
Yes, obviously. Now, as I understand, there were a little over 200 deportees to CECOT who were Venezuelan, and then there were a few dozen who were Salvadoran. Now, when it comes to the Salvadorans, unfortunately, there's really not much we could do because they've been deported to their country, so it's their country, it's Bukele's jurisdiction, and we can feel how we feel about that. There's really nothing we could do about that. In terms of deportation of people from Venezuela to this third-party country for profit, which is human trafficking, by the way, the Salvadoran government's getting paid a lot of money to house these people. That is obviously way beyond the pale, even if you are a border hawk. And so, this is just absolutely horrible. And as I understand now, is it all of the Venezuelans who were deported there? What did they say? Over 200 were sent back to Venezuela. So are they cleared out
I'm
now?
under the impression they made a deal to send all the Venezuelans to Venezuela.
Okay, so at this point, there are no deportees at CECOT who are not Salvadoran.
Sounds that way.
At this point, yeah. So it's a good sign that they did this and that they haven't sent more there. Because, they are clearly,
I think they started getting nervous about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not hearing talk about, hey, we need Bukele to build more. Remember when Trump had him here a couple months ago? You got to build more places. We got to send more people here. Hopefully, they are showing some restraints in that department because of the outcry. Because, look, just as Israel forcing everybody to, abide by the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, you're not doing Israel or Jewish people any favors by doing that. You're not doing the cause of mass deportations any favors by torturing people. If you look at the polling that came out of Atlas Intel, most reputable pollster of the last two cycles, overwhelming support for what Trump ran on and what his mandate was, which is deporting violent criminals. Right? Overwhelming support for that.
Right.
When you take it to this level, by the time you get to deporting people to third-party countries, you're talking about support. I forget the exact number, but it was well under, not 50, well under 40. Like almost everyone opposes what they're doing with CECOT.
The
so
good
if
news
you really,
is most people are not sick bastards.
Most people are not sick bastards. Right. So the best way to undermine your argument for mass deportations is to use it to use the deportation clause as an excuse to torture people in foreign prisons where they have no business being sent to. And
to bring the villain from a Michael Bay movie to the Oval Office to giggle about it.
What's that?
And to bring the villain from a Michael Bay movie to the Oval Office to giggle about it.
Right. Exactly. So, so it is like I said, it is somewhat encouraging that they haven't sent more people there and that the people from the third-party countries have been sent out, because that's obviously, as far as the Salvadorans, there's nothing we could really do about that. He has jurisdiction in that case. All right. Okay, here we go. Otacon. We got to hear what a man you are now, right? With your guns, with your gun bullshit. Sure, you can hyperfixate on shootings, but all violent
shootings and death and Sandy Hook.
But all violent crime is higher because people can't defend themselves. Check out FBI violent crime statistics per state per capita. You may be surprised. All right. Thank you, Otacon. Ryan says, I wonder how many down south mouth hugs Christie gave to the get the position she's in. She was definitely a DEI hire, just like the rest of Trump's administration. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Ellen Jimerson says, I'm not trying to get upset with y'all. Listeners need to know how the horrors aren't novel, offered many times to help with these segments. Well, CECOT is novel, is it not, Ellen? I mean, CECOT is pretty novel. That's what we're talking about. Yes, like abuses of immigrants are not novel, but this seems pretty novel.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's what I would say. Of course, the abuses of immigrants, ICE detention conditions in those facilities are not novel, but yeah, paying a third party fucking banana republic dictator who looks like he belongs in the Machete 3 straight to video sequel, paying him what is it, how much money is he getting per head? I forget the exact amount. That's fairly novel, I think. I've
never heard of such a thing.
I've never heard of such a thing. Javier, Russ, I really love hearing your perspective on the immigration issue. It imbues compassion balanced with perspicacity. What the hell is that word? Perspicacity. Have you ever heard that? I never heard that.
Yeah, it means I have a big dick.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yes. yes.
How did you spot that? Because you could only see me from...
Yeah, how'd you know? Yeah. Exactly.
It's the BDE.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. He could tell. All righty, folks, that's our show. Thanks very much for being here today. The Misty Winston Show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Rumble and X. And then we are back Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern with Film Club that night. So a doubleheader for the patrons on Thursday. Until then, thanks very much to the YouTubers, to the Rumblers. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We appreciate you all very much, and we will see you back here in a couple days, Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern, Misty tomorrow at 8 p.m. Until then, thanks for spending the afternoon with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.